and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Okay, Simon, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. And what do people normally wear?
Clothes.
Exactly. So now Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Clothes keep us warm, they look good, and if we go out without them, the neighbors will talk. So it's important to know how to get dressed. Here's how it's done. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. If you're wearing a tie, it goes over, round, through, and pull tight. Tuck your shirt into your pants and zip up your fly. Socks going first, then shoes right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears.
I love bunnies.
Good to know. Now remember, spots don't go with stripes, socks don't go with sandals, and if you've tucked in your shirt, wear a belt. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are very, very important. Someday, many years from now, when you're a grown-up, you'll be a man. And when you are, you should be a gentleman. Do you want me to go through it one more time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open for ladies. If a door's shut, then knock first. Don't burp, don't swear, don't speak with your mouth full, don't reach across people's plates, keep your elbows off the table.
What table?
And don't interrupt. While we're at it, don't stare, don't use foul language, don't call people names, but do remember people's names. Always share your toys, play nice, and cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. On the bus, give up your seat to anyone who has trouble standing. Bottom line, treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Hey, there he is. How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand or what?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you okay?
I'm having a stroke.
Your face looks weird too.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having a seizure or something?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. Or S, speech difficulty. Then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
Or if that resume was from someone who
worked 12-hour shifts at the recycling company with my dad, who's 72. That taught me a work ethic that I carry with me every day.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone.
Growing up where I did, a lot of things could have gotten in the way of my goals. But I learned to push through, and that's what I bring to work every day.
So maybe it's time we look beyond the resume and look to Grads of Life. Discover new ways to develop great talent that are so much more than what's on paper at gradsoflife.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP, we help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I'd do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes 2. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese.
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well,
We were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There's only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more. Get rest! No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen? Play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Yay!
Man, can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks, Speedy Petey, and Tyler Harrison.
You're not even a has-been. You're never was.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen, a full week with no Sports Loudmouth, and we are back. And yes, Tyler Harrison is in the studio. Remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. You can call us at 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You can go to our website, again, at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download our app by going to iOS, WWSRN, or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I know everybody is probably looking at my head. I am not wearing a hat. No, I lost a bet to, Snug the Cat. So I've lived up to my bet. I am wearing Speedy's old underwear on my head for the show. It is itchy. He did claim that he did wash them. So they will be on my head throughout the show. So yes, I live up to my bets. Anyway, Speedy, how was your week? I know you were at your family's house, hanging out with your brothers. Did your dog sniff anything?
No, but he tried to hump my brother Dylan once.
That's good.
Yeah, he's weird.
Do you think he'd be attracted to Tyler?
Probably.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think he would hump
his
Tyler?
standards aren't very high. His standards are not very high. As long as he gets attention, he doesn't care who it's from. He just wants attention. He just does not want to be lonely. I mean, I could have the biggest bedhead in the world. He still want to see me.
Could you imagine Tyler with your dog? Do you think they would get along? Do you think Tyler?
I would imagine so.
Really?
He likes people.
Does he
likes people.
Do you think he would sniff Tyler's crotch?
I doubt it, unless he takes his pants off or something.
Tyler, would you take your pants off for his dog?
I don't know why I came back here. I should have stayed away.
Anyways, at 9:30, we're hoping. I did tell Speedy to reach out to this particular guy. Jimmy Smith might be joining us at 9:30. 30 Jaguars All-Pro wide receiver. So we're trying to get him onto the show. I know Speedy said that he agreed to come on the show last week. I told Speedy to reach out to him this morning. He decided to reach out to him later in the afternoon. So I don't know if he's definitely going to come on. But at 10 o'clock for sure, we will have former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawk guard Mike Wall joining us. Wall, whatever. He will be joining us. He has a podcast. So we'll talk about his podcast and him being away from the NFL for the last couple of years. So we will talk to Mike Well at 10 o'clock. But there's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about free agency, which is coming up in the NFL in less than 4 weeks. Some conversations on where Aaron Rodgers could go. And there are stories coming out that Aaron Rodgers might not be broken up with his fiance. It's back and forth banter. I don't know what is true and what is not. So that's a huge story right now, not only in the NFL, but in the movie world, or I guess you call the Hollywood world. But anyways, we'll get into the off seasons for the Jets and the Giants and the Patriots too. There are some stories coming out from New England and what the Patriots are going to do in the off season and how they're going to move forward with no Josh McDaniels. There are stories coming out that the Pittsburgh Steelers have reached out to the Las Vegas Raiders on Derek Carr and what it will take for Derek Carr to be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the next couple of weeks. I guess Josh McDaniels is not a big fan of Derek Carr. I think he's an idiot, but that's just my opinion. We will get into that. We'll get into this whole sweepstakes. Yes, the sweepstakes of Aaron Rodgers. And where is Aaron Rodgers moving on to? It doesn't look like he's going to be staying with Green Bay. Everything that I've read, everything that I've heard is he's going to be looking at 2 to possibly 3 teams that are in the running for him. So we'll get into that. What's up, Nithin? So Nithin is over here, a.k.a. Mr. Kneeman. Or what are you looking at? Why are you making faces over there?
What the hell is that?
The Kneeman.
Like he likes knees?
Likes getting on his knees. I'm just kidding, Nithin.
And you know why.
Anyways.
Oh, boy.
We will get into, obviously, the Michigan Wolverines debacle. And you all know who I'm going to be talking about. Juwan Howard getting suspended by the Michigan Wolverines. If he wasn't going to get suspended by the Michigan Wolverines, I'm sure the NCAA were going to suspend him. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the show.
Josh, naturally on Twitter, Wisconsin fans thinks he should be forced out.
Really?
Yep.
Well, it figures from a Wisconsin fan. So we will get into the whole Juwan Howard thing. We will get into basketball as LeBron James speaks at the All-Star game. We'll get into that horrible dunking contest. And I give a shout out to Obi Toppin for winning the dunking contest. But to beat that slew of idiots, I mean, it's not saying much. He did have the best slam dunks. He did. He had the best, more quality dunks. It doesn't really stand out for much of anything. But, obviously Obi Toppin wins the slam dunk contest. He's the 3rd New York Knick to win the slam dunk contest. So we'll get into that. We'll get into the 3-point contest with Karl Anthony Towns winning. And it's not surprising to me why Karl Anthony Towns is one of the best big men. One of the best big men shooters in the NBA. So not surprising that he won. We'll get into the All-Star game and what LeBron James said before the All-Star game, that he wants to play with his son. I told everybody that he will, when his son some way or one of these next couple of years goes into the NBA, gets drafted by an NBA team, he will play with his son no matter where he goes. If he goes to the Knicks, if he goes back, if somehow the Cavaliers have the number 1 pick, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs get him. But one of these, whoever gets him, OKC, wherever he goes, he's going to play with his son. So we'll get into that a little bit later. What is Nathan saying over here?
Nathan is saying, where do you guys think J.C. Jackson will sign?
That's a good question. We'll get into that a little bit later as well.
Ben also says Juwan Howard needs to be fined, fired, and banned by the NCAA.
Who said that?
Ben.
Don't say that to Carl. Carl will jump off a friggin' cliff.
Yeah, come on. Carl, what's going on with your Wolverines? They're going to be in a bit of trouble. Not that they weren't already. They were not having the season that people expected them. So.
Well, I mean, after what they had last year, you would have thought that they were going to come out strong this year. Most of their class coming back, and you expected that this team was going to be an NCAA Final Four contention team. And I still think they could, because if somehow they get into the dance, anything could happen.
Well, they've gotten into the bubble team a lot in the past 5 years. They had I think they won the 10 seed. They had won. They were a play-in team. And then they made it all the way to Sweet 16 before they lost to Oregon. So they've had stretches like that, but recently they've been a top 3. So it's definitely unlike it for them.
Yes, and I still think the Michigan Wolverines can make it to the March Madness. And if they get into the March Madness dance, they can win everything. And there's no question. Remember, one game elimination, anybody can win, anybody can lose. They're not playing good basketball right now. The last 5 games have looked horrible. But I could say that about a lot of teams. Lot of teams.
Carl says they lost 4 starters, so they didn't have a bunch back.
That's fine. And we'll see what this team does moving forward. I mean, March Madness is 2.5 weeks away. So it's right around the corner. And to me, I think what is it? Almost a week and a half, and they're going to be choosing and bracketing.
Right.
So
I think that there's some conferences that have their conference championships next week.
yeah, so they'll be bracketing in less than 2 weeks. So I expect Michigan to somehow slip right in, and if they slip right in, they'll still be very, very dangerous. Sniffing the Kemba Walker news that Kemba Walker will be sitting for the rest of the season. I think the Knicks are protecting their asset. I don't know what asset they have, but Kemba Walker is a trade piece in the offseason, so they don't want anything to happen to him. And Kemba Walker's making his money. I don't think he really cares. This team, the Knicks, are not making the playoffs. I think the Knicks and I think Tom Thibodeau, with everything that's going on and some of the conversations with the organization and the obviously the executives up there in obviously Rose and his team of guys. Tom Thibodeau might be on the hot seat, so he's going to play and he's going to start these young players and see what you have with Grimes, Quigley, and Obi Toppin. So I definitely expected that. I guarantee you the last 2 or 3 weeks you won't see Julius Randle on the court as well. So I expect to see a lot of these young players and see what they have moving forward going into the offseason.
Next says, how is Kemba Walker still in the league? The dude's body is broken down.
Probably, yeah. I would say that, yep. But I want to get into this NFL, and there's so much to talk about with the NFL. Obviously, the Rams winning the championship. We're not talking about the Super Bowl anymore. There are rumors coming out that Tom Brady is going to be directing, producing a movie that he's going to be in. And I think it has a lot to do with his career and where he is going now as a player. But I think with everything that's going on with the quarterbacks that are going to be available and some of these players, there are so many good players that are going to be available in free agency. And Speedy, you could bring that up, that when I bring up free agency, some of the players that are going to be available this offseason, you look at, and yes, Troy Aikman, yes, leaving Fox. We all know that. And he's joining ESPN Monday. I didn't hear about that. I heard he was going to Amazon. That's what I heard. But I guess Troy Aikman is going to ESPN Monday Night Football, which is a good move for ESPN, adding Troy Aikman. That's big news. But how much are they paying him? That's what I want to know.
More than Romo.
I wouldn't say more than, probably Romo money. But deal is getting finalized, he's saying. But you look at this offseason, and there's so many teams that are going to be in the hunt next year to winning a championship. Okay, when you look at the Green Bay Packers, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, they're already championship competitive and ready built. The Tennessee Titans, if somehow they get a quarterback, if it isn't Ryan Tannehill, they could be championship material. We talk about obviously the Seattle Seahawks. Now this year they were horrible. Maybe a successful, healthy Russell Wilson coming back and no DK Metcalf going somewhere else, and this team comes back healthy and they add a couple of defensive players. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks team is right there in the hunt. The San Francisco 49ers, if they could find themselves a quarterback, they could be in the hunt. Even the Saints, even though they lose their coach, if the Saints can find themselves a quarterback and figure out how to maneuver what they're going to do with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, I think they're in the hunt next year as a championship competitive team. And with the AFC, it's so open. It's so open in the Kansas City Chiefs division. I think it's the North division. Is it the North?
It's the AFC West.
The AFC West. Yeah. When you look at the Raiders, with obviously McDaniels, we don't know what's going on with Derek Carr, obviously, and Derek Carr could be traded to Pittsburgh. If Derek Carr gets traded to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh will be one of the favorites of coming out of the North.
Especially hiring Flores now as a defensive assistant, too.
I mean, it could absolutely very much happen. But also the Baltimore Ravens, with all the money that they're going to have in the offseason, the draft stock that they have, they might be one, maybe even two players away from being a Super Bowl contender as well. I mean, there's so many open thoughts on where free agency is going. Some of these players could be dropped. I mean, it is open. It really is open season. And you hear what the Rams have said, that they want to bring back some of these players. They want to bring back Von Miller. They want to bring back Odell Beckham. They want to go for another round and win another championship. I don't know if they're going to be able to unless these guys take a pay cut. But you look at the way they're set up with Cooper Kupp, with obviously Matthew Stafford for another 2 years before he becomes a free agent. This team and a lot of teams are going to be available to maneuver players and bring in players in free agency and really put themselves right there on the top of the list that could be Super Bowl contenders. You talk about the Chargers, Justin Herbert. He has proven himself as a young quarterback in this league. This team was one of the most talented teams throughout this season, made a lot of mistakes at the end of the season. I don't know if I trust the coach, but if they wheel and deal a couple of players, they add maybe some defensive players, especially to that secondary that really gave up in the second half of the season. I'm not talking about Derwin James, but that secondary did not play well. And I think the secondary had a lot to do on why, and really the pass rush at the end of the season. The last 4 games, they couldn't get to the quarterback. They were having a fantastic beginning of the season. It completely fell off at the end of the season. There are so many things that you look at in going into this offseason on some of these teams, Speedy, where you wonder, one player, 2 players, a wheel and deal, a trade, maybe a good draft pick or 2, where you're right there in the mix as a Super Bowl contender.
Well, the AFC now is kind of taken over where the NFC used to be, where it's going to be more of the higher parity conference, not necessarily for who goes to the Super Bowl, because we've still seen back-to-backs with the Chiefs and then 3 in a row with the Patriots, but the Bengals changing that this year could definitely help that. And the Bengals have a lot of money to spend. I believe they were 7th in salary cap in total too, so they can bolster that offensive line. They can bolster that secondary, where they could definitely use some corner help and maybe a couple backup running backs or something like that to help out with Mixon if being a pass catching situation too. So I think there's definitely a lot of options there. The Bengals, the Bills, and the Chiefs you would think are the top 3 right now, but like Errol was saying, there's AFC North teams that have a lot of talent too, especially the Steelers if they get Derek Carr too. And Brian Flores now helping out on that defense too. He's taken a less talented defense with Miami and gotten them to good places. They have a nice secondary, but their front 7 was never great. And the Steelers front 7 Steelers are the reverse. Their front 7 is very good and their secondary is iffy outside of Minka. So they have a window that if they can get a quarterback as good as Derek Carr, as clutch as Derek Carr, that's definitely going to help them for sure too. And the AFC North as a whole still is very strong all around. Whereas the NFC, like you were saying, the Saints, if they figure out something with this money, they could definitely contend in a weaker NFC South. The Bucs are not going to be the same without Brady. They'll still be good, but they're not going to be the same without Brady. Atlanta's better, but still not great. And then Carolina, who knows what they are.
How about you, Tyler? I mean, Kyler Murray, there is a lot of talk of the town that he might be heading out. And if it happens, Kingsbury could be on his way out too. He still has a job, and I don't know if Arizona would be smart enough to say, you know what, we're going to trade Kyler Murray in the offseason, which I think is stupid. And then, you know what, we're going to move on from Kingsbury. Kingsbury got his quarterback. He's going to have to somehow figure out how he could talk his quarterback into staying another year and trying to get this team back in order. This team was one of the best teams in all of football. What are your thoughts, the Arizona Cardinals, and what they should do in the offseason to get back to prominence?
I actually think the Cardinals are probably going to be one of the most disappointing teams in the league next year. AJ Green's going to be gone, or if he does come back, he's going to be even.
He wasn't
slower.
A big deal to the team anyway.
No, so. But he was a number 2 option, and then you saw when Hopkins went down, he was the guy, and he had glimpses of, oh shoot, AJ Green's still AJ Green. Then they brought in Zach Ertz. He doesn't really fit with how they played down the stretch either. The running game has to be addressed, in my opinion. And then you go into the defense. J.J. Watt.
Their running game was as good as any. Their running game was as good as any running game in the second half of the season.
Right. Sure. Whatever.
James Conner wasn't good.
He was all right. He was
all right.
I don't trust James Conner. He's very inconsistent.
How many? What do you have? 1,200 yards this year?
Something like that. And they also had the second most touchdowns among running backs.
Yeah, like 10 or 11 touchdowns. He had a fantastic year. They're going to re-sign him. There's no doubt in my mind they're re-signing him.
I mean, good luck spending that type of money on a guy that's not.
James Conner's on. He's first of all, they're not going to overpay James Conner. James Conner's going to get a $4 or $5 million contract. They're not going to over, and maybe a little bit more. A little bit more. They're not going to
12.
You're out of your mind. You're out of
no way. He won't get 12. He's too injury prone for 12.
There is no way they're paying. There's no way they're paying him $12 million. There's no way.
I would say at most 7.
That's what I say. $6 to $7 million, the most amount of money that he's going to get. There's no way they're paying him $12 million. And why would he leave? Why would he leave Arizona the way he played this year? He fits that offense.
Because quite frankly, I think there's a lot of problems in the locker room. Chandler Jones is as good as gone. Why they
no
didn't
question. He doesn't want to be there anyway.
So Chandler Jones is gone.
But he was barely there all
Watt's
season long.
Watt's going to get released.
No, Watt's staying there for another year. That's what I'm hearing.
I don't believe that to be true.
Watt says he wants to stay there.
Of course he's going to stay there.
Well, he just bought a house over there.
I get it. And he also stayed in Houston with a smile on his face for 10 years.
The only place he would be traded to or signed to if he becomes available is the Pittsburgh Steelers. That would be the only team he goes to. I can't see him going anywhere else.
And
playing with his brothers.
But I can't see him being a Cardinal next year. And again, if they do keep him, he's another guy. He's not inconsistent, but he's barely playing. He will get hurt at some point because he gets hurt every year. Love J.J. Watt, first ballot Hall of Famer, but that's the fact of the matter. And then there's Budda Baker. And outside of Budda Baker, that defense to me is a giant fucking black hole.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't trust
that
anyone
Arizona
on that defense.
Cardinals defense is one of the best defenses in the league this year. For you to say it's a black hole, why? Because Chandler Jones is leaving? Chandler Jones is barely there the whole season. He was barely there the whole season. J.J. Watt was barely there the whole season.
Jones played,
and their defense was still one. They had two really talented linebackers. They have two really talented safeties. Their corners are good. The corners are good.
Murphy and Budda Baker are the only guys in the back end.
I think they were amongst the league's top 10 in pass rush
sacks.
Attempts
They were,
and sacks too. So
they were just bad against the run. That was the only reason.
How could you say this defense is a black hole? This defense is one of the strengths of the team. So to lose J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, it's not going to kill them to lose those guys. They still are a talented bunch of players.
Two top 10 pass rushers. You don't think that's going to be a problem?
J.J. Watt is not a top 10 pass rusher. He is not. He hasn't been that. He hasn't been that in 3 years. Okay. So to say that J.J. Watt it's ridiculous. He didn't play all season long. So to lose him, it didn't make a difference. Now, obviously, Chandler Jones had a good, 3 games. Then he got hurt. He was out for how many games? 7, 8 games, came back. He played okay. He wasn't great. And one of the reasons why this team couldn't get over the hump, especially against the Rams, was because they couldn't get a pass rush because of your great Chandler Jones. So I don't think losing Chandler Jones is that much of a loss. Now, Chandler Jones is a good player. If he goes to the right team, he's definitely going to help. I just don't think Chandler Jones is the player that he once was. And the guy has been fighting injury after injury after injury. Now, there are some good players and good free agents that are available this offseason. Mike Williams, he's a good player. Now, I don't know if the Los Angeles Chargers are going to give him a contract. Now, there are stories coming out that they're negotiating the deal. But again, you know the Chargers as well as anybody, Speedy. This team does not like to overpay players that they don't think fit the culture of this team and moving forward this organization. So I don't know if Mike James is a fit for this team and this organization moving forward. There's a bunch of other. Marcus Williams from the Saints. He's going to be available. One of the best safeties in the league. J.C. Jackson. Now, I do believe he re-signs one way or another with the New England Patriots, but you never know when it comes to teams overpaying and over throwing money to a guy like this. Now, I do believe one way or another they'll franchise him and they'll hold him on for another year because they're not going to just lose him for nothing. I believe he's the best corner in all of football. There are other players that stand out. Von Miller. I do believe the Rams will do everything they can. Chris Godwin is another player that stands out. He did tear his ACL in the middle of the season. I still think he's going to get big paying money. He is one of the best slot receivers. Could be a number 1 receiver on any other team. Tehran Armstead from the Saints, a very good player. He's another guy that's going to be available this offseason. He's a tackle, obviously. So he will be a lead guy where teams are going to be going and gunning for him and overpaying for a player of that magnitude. And Davante Adams is another player that is standing out. Now, if Derek Carr goes to Pittsburgh, I don't see him going to the Raiders. Now, there are stories coming out that the lead team to get him are the Raiders. Now, but if Derek, and that's because of Derek Carr, him and Derek Carr are very close. If Derek Carr gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's no way in hell Davante Adams is going to the Raiders. So, I mean, there's so many guys, and there are much more guys. I just need some of them. You have Orlando Brown Jr. You have Allen Robinson, who's a good player. Jesse Bates, who was a big part of the Super Bowl contending team. Not necessarily. I mean, there are stories, Speedy. Who are they talking about making a trade with?
Quentin Nelson, and they're trying to get Quentin Nelson from the Colts because the Colts haven't given him a contract yet.
If Quentin Nelson becomes available, and obviously they're going to have to trade for him, Bates is as good as gone. There's no way in hell to pay.
He doesn't want a lot of money.
What do you mean he doesn't want a lot of money?
He wants 5 years, $70 million.
He's going to get more than that. He's the best guard in football.
No, not Quentin Nelson. Jesse Bates apparently wants 5 years, $70 million.
Yeah, I understand that. But if you Quentin Nelson, if he's going to get paid, he's going to get paid over $100 million. He's the best guard in football.
He's the best lineman in football.
No, I don't know if he's the best.
Do with the other?
Because
then why would the Colts trade him?
Why would the Colts trade him? If they can't re-sign him and they decide to move away from him, that could absolutely happen. Right over here, Carl says ESPN is reporting the Packers freed up $11 million today. What does that mean?
Good. Congratulations. You might be able to re-sign 2 more players.
Does that mean they're going to re-sign Aaron Rodgers? I don't see
Aaron Rodgers was gone last year.
I don't see Aaron Rodgers going back to them. I really don't. Ryan Jensen from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another good player, center that's available. Jadeveon Clowney, not a big name. He'll be available. There'll be teams looking to get him. Randy Gregory, who had a good season with the Cowboys, could be available. I don't know if the Cowboys, Stephon Gilmore, who played fantastic. He played fantastic when he got traded to the Carolina Panthers. Now, I do believe Carolina will find a way to re-sign him, especially giving up a 2023 pick for him. I think they'll find a way, but I don't know where the Panthers' salary cap is.
It was 12.
It's 12.
We looked it up a couple weeks ago. It was 12.
So they have money. They'll probably bring Gilmore back. But there's so many good players that are going to be available this offseason. When we go back and look at last offseason, there was not that many players that stuck out to me where I said, oh, my God, this is going to be a good offseason where you could bring in 2-3 big, huge free agents and you could be a Super Bowl contender. Now, obviously, the Bengals brought in 7 pieces that helped them go to the Super Bowl, but they had a quarterback in line that was ready to take them to that next level. This offseason, there are players that are going to be, remember, Michael Gallup's available. There are players that are available that could be game-changing players this offseason. And with the quarterbacks that are so open to be traded and free agents, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is open. Deshaun Watson is open. Russell Wilson's is open. Who else is?
Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray. Cousins. I mean, there are so many players. There are so many quarterbacks this offseason that could absolutely be game changers for these organizations where it could completely flip-flop. So, I mean, if you look at it, Speedy, this is open season this offseason for a lot of these teams. And teams like the Jets, Indianapolis, teams that have money this offseason. Who else is the lead board guy?
The Ravens and the Bengals.
The
Ravens and the Bengals. The Jaguars have a lot of money because they purged almost everything on that team. So,
I mean, if you look at a lot of these teams, I mean, it's open season. Yes, open season for a lot of these teams to really rebuild this team with a click, with snap of their fingers.
Well, Carson Wentz is as good as gone.
I think Carson Wentz,
right,
yes, it seems like it is. It's a shame because Carson Wentz, really going into the second half of the season, was having a fantastic season.
Yes, he was.
He really was. I know he choked the last 3 games, and he was a big part of the choking. So they got to point their fingers at somebody. They're not gonna point their fingers on Wright. But I'm telling you right now, Frank Wright is going to have to produce a playoff appearance going into this offseason, into the new season of 2023. If he doesn't, he will be fired.
Carl says Seattle won't be here with their $9 million punter. Just ask Speedy.
Mm-hmm.
Snuck says Brady to Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers to Indy, and they meet in the Super Bowl.
I know, right?
If Speedy's dog came in right now, might it confuse Earl's head for Speedy's ass and start licking his head? No, he doesn't like to go vertical.
Listen, Snug, just so you know, I actually live up to my bets, okay? So I'm actually wearing Speedy's underwear on my head because I lost the bet, unlike some people, okay? So,
Carl says Marcus Williams to the Eagles. Yes, that's very possible. Ben says Packers hire former offensive coordinator Tom Clements as new quarterback coach to keep Rodgers happy so he doesn't retire. They are very close. Nathan says J.C. Jackson. Carl Snug says Ryan Fitzmagic. Who knows? Nathan says I could say J.C. Jackson going to the Bengals, maybe. And
where do the Bengals have this money to bring in Quentin Nelson, J.C. Jackson, bringing back Bates? There's no way in hell they're going to have this money. You're talking about $150 million. Does anybody think they're going to have $150 million to spend this offseason? Bates is going to want $70 million. Quentin Nelson's going to want $100. J.C. Jackson's one of the best corners in the league. You're talking about maybe close to $90 to $100 million. There's no way in hell they're going to be able to do it. And why would J.C. Jackson go over there? The weakness of the Bengals isn't their secondary. The weakness of the Bengals is their offensive line. I mean, Quentin Nelson could be a great move for them and put them in a great position. But to bring in Quentin Nelson, you're going to have to lose a piece. I can't see them bringing back Bates if they bring in Quentin Nelson.
Colts separating from Quentin Nelson at all.
Well, I don't know what's going on. Obviously, we're just talking about Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz is gone, what are they going to do at that quarterback? Now, are they now? There are stories coming out that Tampa is making a run for Russell Wilson. I mean, that's the guy. That's what I've heard. They're making a big run for him. I don't know what they're offering. Obviously, they're going to be giving up their future first-round draft picks for the next couple of years. But that is the story coming out of Tampa right now. Is Russell Wilson is the guy? He's the guy that they really, really want. Now, Deshaun Watson.
Devin White.
I'm sorry.
It's going to cost you Devin White.
More than that. It's going to cost you more than that.
Well, draft picks, but Devin White as a player is going to be good enough.
But in Seattle, first of all, does Seattle need Devin White? I mean, their defense, first of all, Devin White's a linebacker, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do they need a linebacker for? They still have Wagner there. Is Wagner a free agent? I think he is a free agent.
Even so, he's old too. So I still would.
Well, what's old? 31, 32?
For a linebacker, that's pretty old.
Wagner is still one of the best linebackers in the league this year.
Devin White is just as good and younger.
That's fine. But I'd honestly pay.
Cheaper.
No, he's not cheaper.
Yeah, Devin White.
Devin White's still on his rookie contract.
Is he? But what is his year? Is it fourth year?
This is his fourth year going into it.
So why would you do that? You're gonna have to overpay
him. If you're
him.
gonna pay a linebacker, why don't you get him?
Pay Wagner. You're not gonna have to overpay Wagner.
Wagner's making $20.35 million right now.
Who is?
Bobby Wagner's making
$20.35
million.
Is he a free agent?
No,
that's what I'm asking.
Still on the roster.
That's why you should be looking and stop talking. Okay, so to me, I think that when you look at this offseason, there's so many things that could happen. And like I said, this list of players, Tyrann Mathieu is available. Brandon Scherf is available. Odell Beckham is available. I mean, Mike Gesicki is available. One of the best tight ends in the league.
Well, a lot of Jets fans
very
want.
underrated.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it. Emmanuel Agba, he's going to be available. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Melvin Ingram is available. So, who had a good season this year as a secondary running back on the Chargers. So, I mean, there are so many players that are going to be available this offseason. And all it takes is one, maybe two. It could be three moves. You saw it with the Bengals. Who else did? The Rams made a lot of moves this offseason and going into the middle of the season, which helped them go to the Super Bowl.
Chiefs made a bunch, yeah.
The Chiefs did too. I mean, how about the Patriots? They spent $150 million in the offseason last year. It's not the Patriot way. And that helped them make the playoffs. It helped them almost win the division, which I think the Patriots are still going to be really dangerous going into next year because all in all, this team is still stacked with the defensive players that they had. They had two defensive linemen going into the Pro Bowl, and they still have. If they bring in J.C. Jackson, they re-sign J.C. Jackson, there's a good opportunity where this team defensively is going to be amongst the league's best again this year.
Nathan says we need to bring back Gallup. Snug says Nathan thinks the Bengals have a $450 million salary cap.
You know what?
Bengals are 50, or Ben says Packers are $50.7 million over the cap as of Monday. And Carl has a question for Errol. Ask Speedy and Tyler what gets washed more, Speedy's underwear or Tyler's beard?
I have no idea. Tyler, do you wash your beard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Speedy,
probably the answer.
how many times do you wash your underwear a week?
It depends on the week. But
are these underwear washed?
Yes.
But they're old.
They're old. Like I've had them a while.
You have them for a while. When was the last time you wore these underwear?
My beard doesn't even look dirty.
Months ago. Probably.
Months ago. So y'all go good. So there you go, guys. I'm not wearing dirty underwear. That's a good sign. I mean, I am been itching, but it is tight around my forehead. But I'm a man of my word, as I always say. I follow through what I say I do. Okay. But again, I mean, what stands out to you guys? I mean, obviously, some of the good players that are available, but even the quarterback. I've never seen an offseason where you look at all these quarterbacks that are going to be could be available or could be traded. It could change the power of divisions. It really could, or could change the power from the NFC and the AFC. So, Speedy, Tyler, where do you see this offseason going? Do you think that all these quarterbacks could be on a move? I could see 3 out of the 6 being moved.
I think it's already started to shift in terms of division parity. The and the NFC now has like one legitimately strong division in the NFC West, and the other three are average at best and probably below average in most circumstances. The AFC now has two strong divisions. The AFC East is pretty good too. We have to see how Miami is without Flores, and if the Patriots could duplicate what they did last year. The Jets should get better. Buffalo's still elite, so that's interesting. The other thing that's interesting too is how many quarterbacks will get traded.
I don't know if Buffalo is going to be elite going into the offseason. They're losing like 7 starters. They're going to lose a lot of players. Yes, they're older players and they have some young defensive players. They're going to play a full season at that position. Are they going to be still an elite team? Now, they do bring back White. White will be healthy, 100% healthy. Does it help this secondary? Obviously, it does. But are they going to be elite with all these big veteran players parting ways with the Buffalo Bills? I don't know about that. I think you remember these veterans are a big part of the defense and what this defense did throughout the season. So,
most of them are veteran pass rushers, and I think Sean McDermott and now that Leslie Frazier's back there, they're trying to work in the younger pass rushers that they've drafted the last 2 years.
Could you trust them? That's the question.
Could we trust them is another question. Now, Epinesa was supposed to be in 2020, supposed to be a guy that was supposed to be a first-round pick. He fell because of injury, and Greg Rousseau this year was supposed to be
he was good.
He was good his rookie year. Yeah, I would say he was another guy that has a lot of upside too. And then they also have their second-round pick in Boogie Basham, who was also a solid pass rusher.
He was better than Rousseau.
At certain points, he was.
He was better than Rousseau.
So I would say they have a good mixture of it. Now they have to play full-time. They have to eventually is going to take on number one attention, edge, double team, stuff like that. So we'll see if they can work that into the system. I think that's what the Bills' plan has been. And the Bills have done that for the last 4 years, really. They've stuck to their rebuild. They've gotten rid of veterans at the right time for the most part. And not that Addison and Hughes can't still be good pass rushers, but they are older now and they are kind of one-dimensional. So maybe they want to take that kind of thing on.
How about you, Tyler? I mean, all these quarterbacks, there's so many conversations that this guy could be traded here, that guy could be traded there, this guy could be traded over there. What quarterbacks really stand out to you going into the offseason that could be on a move?
I mean, the big name is Deshaun Watson, right? And
I don't think he's the biggest name.
I mean, you're going to say Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not trading my franchise away to get a 40-year-old quarterback. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the Washington Commanders are honestly a team that people really need to pay attention to because they have a lot of cheap contracts and that defense.
They're ninth in salary cap right now, yep.
So, I mean, they get one more wide receiver. They get a tackle. I think Tehran Armstead will end up there. And then all of a sudden, you're talking about this team being a quarterback away from forget the division. They're a Super Bowl contender at that point. If Chase Young comes back as healthy as he plans to be, that team is all set. I think they're a very scary team. I can see them trading away a couple pieces to get a Deshaun Watson or I'm trying to think. I mean, hell, maybe a Carson Wentz goes there on like an Alex Smith type of deal.
I don't know if Carson Wentz will ever get a starting job again. I mean, he had a good season, but if the Indianapolis Colts, who Frank Wright was a part of, obviously drafting him, and then he decides to part ways with him, I don't know if any team is going to give Carson Wentz a chance to be a starter.
I don't think that's a right decision. I think that's a Ballard decision.
It doesn't matter. Wright has to be involved with it. I mean, he's running that organization. He is the quarterback guru. He is the coach. And if he's deciding to part ways with Carson Wentz after the season that he had under him, I think that says a lot on what he thinks that Carson Wentz is. Maybe he doesn't think he can win with Carson Wentz. And now obviously,
maybe Ballard sees a guy he can win with. Maybe they draft somebody in the second round, third round.
You're going to trust in a rookie than Carson Wentz?
No, I wouldn't know, but maybe that's what Chris Ballard's thinking.
I don't think so.
He's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than Wentz. What's Wentz on the block for? $22 million?
$28 million.
I say they're going to get rid of Carson Wentz because of the money, and they don't want to pay him the $28 million unless they trade him away and they get a piece back, a quarterback back for him. But who you going to – Derek Carr? I mean – you could. That makes a lot of sense, trading Carson Wentz to the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, I'm just saying, but he might want other players on that team.
What McDaniels wants.
McDaniels might want other players on Indianapolis that fits what he's trying to do over there. And maybe if you can send Derek Carr over there, he gets Carson Wentz, he's not a bad quarterback. You can still play with him. You saw what he did with Mac Jones. And maybe you bring in one or two other pieces that can help this team move forward. I mean, Vegas is maybe 3-4 players away from being a contender. They were a playoff team last year.
Offensive line probably and some receiving depth, I would imagine. Their defense did a lot better than expected, though, last year.
Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson and for Derek Carr, not for just Derek Carr, maybe picks and all that other stuff. There are offensive, maybe one or two offensive. He wants, first of all, if they're not going to pay him, he's going to want to be traded. Okay, you could say hell no, all you want.
No, I'm saying why would you trade? That's ridiculous.
Because really, Carson Wentz is the throw-in. He's really just a throw-in piece. It's really Derek Carr for Quentin Nelson. That's really what it is. And you'll obviously Vegas is going to have to throw one or two other pieces in. That makes a lot of sense. And they will. I mean, obviously, but that's not too far-fetched. I mean, they're looking for offensive line help. You don't have to, first of all, they're in two different, they're practically, I guess, well, they're in the same division, right?
No,
they're in the AFC.
They're both in the AFC.
So you'll have to play them maybe once every other year or something like that, or every other year.
They play next year, too.
Yeah, so maybe you have to play them once in a blue moon, but you won't have to see them a lot. They're not in the same division. You're not going to see them twice a year. So in thought, I mean, maybe that makes sense. I don't know, but there are stories coming out that Quentin Nelson wants a big contract, and the Colts are not willing to give him that $100 million. And if they don't, somebody will.
And it's so weird because they should. They're always in the top for salary cap. This year they're 7th, and they never want to pay these guys, overpay these guys. Chris Ballard has done well drafting for the most part, finding guys that work in late round picks, finding guys that fits this defensive scheme. Maybe that allows to do with the coaches too, but still these drafts have been pretty good, and yet they haven't been able to make those splash moves that have taken them to the next level. Even though they've made the playoffs in kind of fluky ways. They needed like a 7-game winning streak or something to get in his first year after they lost to the Jets. And then they snuck in. Last year, they made it as the 7th seed, and then they lost to the Bills. So it hasn't been easy. They haven't been able to take that next step. And it's just weird to think because the Colts always had their history of quarterbacks, and now they have had revolving doors with it, with Phillip Rivers, now Carson Wentz, and now they're probably replacing one again.
I mean, and you look at the New York teams. I mean, I've been hearing a lot about the Giants and what the Giants are trying to do. The Giants bring in a second woman to the coaching staff, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Giants are really trying to figure out and close up on what this coaching staff is going to be moving forward with this team. And I think they've done very, very well so far as their coaching staff is concerned. The question is, what are they going to do with Saquon Barkley? Saquon Barkley is going to want a big contract after next year. He's still on his rookie contract. I think their plan is to move him. There are other pieces that, I mean, they're not going to be able to trade Kenny Golladay. He is a lost cause. You're not going to be able to get rid of that contract. So they're going to have to bring Kenny back. But there are other pieces that the Giants, Leonard Williams, they gave him an extension last year. There might be teams looking for a defensive lineman in their scheme, a 4-3 scheme. I don't know. Maybe where did their offensive where did Graham go? I forget where Graham went.
Raiders.
He went to the Raiders. Maybe somehow the Giants and the Raiders can make a trade. I mean, Leonard Williams played under Graham pretty well. Maybe Raiders are looking for defensive line help. Maybe
run defense, yeah.
Yeah, maybe Leonard Williams would be a good fit with the Raiders.
Where would he play?
What do you mean?
We got Crosby on one side and Nassib on the
tackle.
other. I don't think
he'd play alongside Hankins, defensive tackle.
I don't know.
I mean, he'd be a power rusher on occasion, I guess.
Listen, I don't know if it's going to happen, Tyler. I'm just naming players that would make sense now that Graham went over there. He played under Graham's defense. He understands Graham's defense. So why not? I mean, it makes sense.
Shit last year.
He played like shit. He also played not healthy last year. He wasn't 100% healthy last year. He played healthy the year before. He played almost 13, 14 games, and he was a Pro Bowl player.
$18 million. You want to gamble $18 million for a position you don't really need?
No. Again, they do need it, and they need defensive help in the middle and stopping the run.
It's not their biggest need, but it definitely could be helpful though. Either whether it's interior defensive line help or linebackers, they'll need something like that because their run defense was below average last year.
I don't know
when it's been good for a while.
I don't know what Josh McDaniels is thinking. What this team is.
Whoever knows.
But then again, you bring in a defensive coordinator, and he wants players that know his defense. That's what usually coordinators do. They bring in players that know their style of game. And Leonard Williams, who played very well in that style, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these Giants that become available or are traded for pieces. Remember, Josh McDaniels and obviously Dable are from the same cloth. They come from the Patriots cloth. I wouldn't be surprised if some way or another that these teams will be trading pieces or trade partners one way or another. Now, again, looking at this offseason, there are a lot of good free agents, so you don't really have to make trades unless unless something makes sense. Now, again, I don't know what some of these teams are thinking. And even though this whole Kyler Murray thing is taking and is growing legs, it's going to be very, very hard for the Arizona Cardinals to part ways with their superstar quarterback.
Is he
Okay?
a superstar?
He's a superstar quarterback.
Nah,
No, he's not a superstar. He was in the Pro Bowl last year, and he was a borderline Pro Bowl player this year. Fantasy-wise, he's one of the best fantasy players in the league. I mean, the guy's fantastic. I don't know why you don't think he
didn't
is.
say he wasn't fantastic.
He was fantastic.
A
So
star and a superstar.
He's a
are not the
superstar
same.
player. Your team is a top team in the NFL. You're one of the reasons why you're a superstar player.
And then you should have showed up when the game mattered most.
Yeah, well, good. That happens to a lot of quarterbacks. It's not just one. There are a lot of good quarterbacks.
You're right, but most of them don't throw a pitch fit afterwards.
That's great. To say that Kyler
So
Murray.
did Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was
another one. He's
lashing
not a
out at the
superstar
refs
He's
after
not
the
a
game.
superstar either.
Well, I remember when the Saints lose in the NFC title game because of bad play call, and he was bitching and moaning. Drew Brees, your favorite quarterback. So don't get me started.
Drew Brees is a superstar.
Yeah, yeah, he's a superstar. And Kyler Murray isn't. Get out of here. All right, you
Drew
sound
Brees
stupid.
is a top 10 quarterback all time.
That's fine. Kyler Murray's been in the league for 3 years, and he's been in 2 out of the 3
so he doesn't
years.
have the same
And
clout that Drew Brees has. You're being ridiculous.
It doesn't matter. 2 out of the 3 years he's been a Pro Bowl player, and he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I don't know where you come out and say that he's not a superstar
Drew
player.
Brees never threw a temper tantrum after losing the game and blamed everyone but
Drew
himself.
Brees never went to a crappy team like that. All right. What?
Careful. That Saint team was crap when
really?
he got there.
Really was crap?
Mhm.
I don't know about that. Sean Payton was there. That team was practically a quarterback away from being a good team. So I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So again, you look at where Kyler Murray is. I think it's just clout. I can't see the Arizona Cardinals unless Kyler Murray is telling Arizona, trade me or I'm not playing this year.
Or pay me now.
Or pay me now, or I'm going to go and play baseball. I mean, he could do that. I don't think he's going to play baseball. I think he chose where he wanted to be. That's why he gave up $5 or $6 million that was offered to him from the Oakland Athletics. I don't see him going back to baseball. But I cannot see the Arizona Cardinals parting ways unless for Deshaun Watson. If you look at it, Kyler Murray for Deshaun Watson, I would make that trade. I would.
Even with the cases?
Because I think, remember, they're not criminal cases. He's not going to jail for them. He's
no,
not.
I know. They just have a good roster right now. I don't know if they would want to risk that.
He's not going to jail for it. So, case or no case, even if he has to pay millions and millions of dollars out to these ladies, he's not going to jail. And he's done his time. There's no way the NFL is going to sit him out again. He's been sitting out for a year and a half. They're not going to sit him out anymore. He's done enough. So after the case, if he gets traded, he's going to play this year, Deshaun Watson.
So says Josh Allen is going to play 2 ways next season, and Aaron Rodgers for Kyler Murray straight up.
Just so we're all aware, the Saints the year before they got Drew Brees were 3-13.
That's great. That's great. So we're going to sit there, and Drew Brees was there.
A pretty crappy team.
That's Kyler Murray. Well, how bad were they before Kyler Murray? How bad were they?
5-10 with Kyler Murray.
5-10 without Kyler. They had the number 1 pick when they got Kyler Murray.
I understand, and then they won 5 games.
They won 5 games because he was out for the 4 or 5 games because of injury. Yeah, whatever.
5 games is 5
and he
games.
was a Pro Bowl player. So whatever, Tyler. You could sit here and talk about Drew Brees. Drew Brees was a veteran player when he went to the Saints. That's right, because he was the one crying. It's okay for Drew Brees to cry, but it's not okay for Kyler Murray to cry.
Crying, I don't mean literally crying. I mean, well, my organization didn't do this.
They didn't.
They didn't.
They didn't. You
won 12 games in the regular season. You can't be competitive.
Who won 12 games?
12, 11 games? The Cardinals won?
Yeah, Kyler Murray was a big part of why they won 12 games.
Sure. And you're the biggest reason they looked embarrassing.
Again, a quarterback that was left hanging by his offensive line and getting sacked, 9 times against the Rams in the beginning rounds of the playoffs. And you had home field advantage. You had home field advantage against the Rams, and you were embarrassed by the Super Bowl champion Rams, and that's his fault. That's great. But to me, and that was his first game as a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. You're going to blame a rookie quarterback in his first playoff game. Hey, it's Kyler Murray's fault.
I'm not blaming him for that. I'm blaming him. You're the quarterback. You're a leader. Why are you being a baby?
Like,
why are you being a baby?
As well as anybody should be. If I'm sitting there and I'm getting sacked 9 times and my offensive line practically didn't even play the game, you put me in. How many times did you position me at the 1 yard line, 2 yard line because my special teams sucked in that game too? I'd be pissed off too.
You blaming special teams.
I'm blaming the whole team, not just Kyler Murray.
It's
not just Kyler Murray's fault.
Teams too.
Yep, it was. It was Green Bay special team. They couldn't kick field goals. They couldn't kick the extra point, and they couldn't. And with a blocked field goal, blocked punt. They're standing there while the San Francisco 49ers are walking it right in on the 15-yard line. Yes, I do blame special teams. Yes, I do.
Snug says, I think the Texans sat Watson last year, not the NFL. Yes, but if he played, he would have been suspended.
No, I think Snugs is a little bit right. Again, the fact that he sat out, I can't see the NFL sitting him out another year if some team trades for him. I think he plays next year if he gets traded for. Now, I don't know who's going to trade for him. I did think that it was going to be Tampa, but now I'm hearing that Russell Wilson is definitely the guy that they're after. Now, what is Tampa going to have to do to get Russell Wilson? I mean, it's not going to be easy to get Russell Wilson. As you know, what Chicago offered him last year, 3 first rounds and a player, a good player, starter, a defensive starter. I don't know what they're going to have to give up. Now, Russell Wilson didn't have a great year. So maybe you'll get lucky and you only have to give up 2 first rounds and a second and maybe a 4th and a player. I don't know. But you're giving away your future, as well as the Rams did to get Matthew Stafford. Now, if you think you're a player, Russell Wilson, a player away from winning a Super Bowl, then you make the trade. But it's so interesting when you look at going into this offseason.
They might even get lucky, and DK might go with Russell Wilson.
No, DK Metcalf. First of all, Tampa don't have the money to pay DK Metcalf.
It's a rookie deal. He's making like barely $1 million.
Again, if he's going to get traded, and they're not going to. So hold on one second.
They're not going to.
So hold on one second. You're gonna have to give 2 first rounds.
They don't want him there.
Let's take a guess. Russell Wilson didn't have as good a year as he did last year because of his finger, his surgery. Let's say you get lucky. You give up 2 first rounds, a second, and a 4th. Okay? To trade for DK Metcalf, you're going to have to give up another first, maybe another second or a second and a 4th. Are you willing to give away your future for these 2 players? I'm not.
Yeah, because you're going to lose Chris Godwin.
That's fine.
Let Godwin walk. DK replaces Godwin, and you still got a 2-headed monster. And
crazy.
Tyler Johnson. Scotty Johnson goes in the middle.
There has to be a reason why DK wants to leave Seattle.
They don't want him there.
How do you
maybe
know?
Maybe he doesn't like Pete Carroll.
Maybe he doesn't like Russell Wilson.
Well, then that's something Tampa Bay would have to do their research on. But if they don't have a problem with each other, I don't see why you don't just see what it could cost.
It's pretty funny how DK Metcalf the year before was one of the best wide receivers in the league. And then this year, he didn't have the year that he had last year.
No, but he was still good.
I mean, he was all right. To me, I would have rather Tyler Lockett than DK Metcalf this year. Tyler Lockett also fought a lot of injuries. Small guy, but when Tyler Lockett was on the field, when Russell Wilson was on the field, Tyler Lockett was the better player. Now, I don't know what the situation was DK Metcalf, but there are stories coming out that there are taking conversations on possibly trading DK Metcalf. If I were a team right now, I do not trade a first round for DK Metcalf. If that's what they're putting up for a DK Metcalf, I don't trade a first round pick for DK.
Snug says Russell Wilson to San Francisco. That won't happen. They don't have a first round pick, and
no,
and they're not going to trade in division.
No.
And then Penn says
Garoppolo
Russell Wilson to Green Bay.
Back next year. It's either going to be Lance or Garoppolo, and Garoppolo's probably going to be the guy.
What, Jimmy Garoppolo where? San Francisco?
Yeah.
He's not staying there.
Well, there's growing up.
They're dangling him. It's still going to be tough to move.
He's not. He's not going. He's not going back to San Francisco. I cannot see any. And the way Jimmy Garoppolo spoke after the game against the Rams, it seemed like he already knows he's on his way out. So I think with the fact that Kirk Cousins might be available this offseason, I think it makes a lot of sense that Kirk Cousins goes there for 1 year. He could actually start the season as the starting quarterback and then slowly but surely move Trey Lance in as the starting quarterback. And Kirk Cousins was drafted by obviously Shanahan He knows the offense like a glove, and the players around him, the weapons that they have already, they're set up right now. San Francisco should be set up to win next year. They really are. And now I don't know if Kirk Cousins is a missing piece of that team. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been a missing piece of a lot of teams year in and year out, from Washington, now all these years with the Minnesota. I really thought that he was the missing piece to take Minnesota over the top, and he wasn't.
They're always an every other year team, Minnesota, no matter how talented they are. Before we go to break, because Mike Whale has arrived, Snug says Jimmy G to Carolina for Sam Darnold.
That makes no Jimmy G to Carolina makes sense, not for Sam Darnold. I don't think that's going to happen. But Jimmy G going to Carolina makes a lot of sense.
Actually, in their defense, though, even though Darnold is a downgrade, it does save him a lot of money, though. The Niners.
It's very, very interesting. And I think Sam Darnold will be there next year. I can't see. They gave up a second and a fourth for Sam Darnold.
I think he will too, but I'm not going to say they rule out Dangler.
He might not win. He might not win the job. He'll be up there to try to win the job. And I know the fans can't stand him over there. They were booing the hell out of him when he came back, when they took Cam Newton out. But Cam Newton's washed up. I don't think you'll see Cam Newton play another football game in the NFL. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawk guard Mike Well here on the Sports Loudmouths.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen,
Worldwide.
I am wearing Speedy's dirty underwear on my head. I lost the bet, as you see. We are the Sports Loudmouths. I'm your host, Daryl Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey, Tyler Duff Harrison. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download our app by going iOS, WWSRN, or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Yes, I lost the bet during the year. What was the game, Speedy? It was Buffalo.
Bills, Chiefs. Yeah.
It was Bills and Chiefs, I guess the AFC title game?
The divisional
round. Divisional game, I'm sorry. And I lost. I picked Buffalo, and this is what happens to me. I get the opportunity to wear Speedy's old, disgusting Hanes underwear. Well, there you go. So now our guest gets the opportunity to get an interview with my crazy forehead. Anyways, we are now talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawk guard Mike Well. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, all good, guys. How you guys doing tonight?
We are good, man. I mean, obviously I'm not, because
This is not a gas mask, man. You're in good shape. It looks fine. I thought it was stylish.
It does. It looks like a do-rag.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look that bad, especially when I practically rubber band it to my head. But I lost the bet, so I'm a man of my word, Mike. So there you go.
Yeah, good man.
Well, I don't know how many bets you made over there with the Packers. We'll get into that in just 1 second. Tell us a little bit about, obviously not playing. You've been out of the NFL for a couple of years. What have you been doing? I've been reading a little bit about you. I checked out your podcast. What have you been doing since you haven't been in the NFL?
Yeah, so I got out. I stopped playing in 2009. I went back in like 2014. Started working as on the other side of the ball as position coach, performance coach, skill development specialist. And now I have a platform I use, Process to Perform. I help players, parents, and coaches kind of reach that next level. We work on 3 tool sets. We work on mindset development, technical mastery, and ownership decisions. And I use those to help these aspiring athletes, even pro level guys at this stage, kind of level up, get to that next contract, get to high school to college to pro, etc. So we have a lot of fun with it. There's the podcast, obviously, and then there's a couple of webinar sessions and platforms that we use to help accelerate development.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawk guard Mike Well. Now, Mike, I don't know what it is.
It's Wall, guys. Wall.
What? See, Speedy? I said it was
All
Wall.
You were right the first time. Yeah.
I told you, Speedy. You see, I knew it was Mike Wall, but he told me it was Well. So there you go. You see what I mean?
My bad. I listened to my
producer.
I listened to another podcast and they pronounced it wrong too. So I took it from that.
See that?
That's my bad, Mike.
Should have taken my advice, Speedy. But anyways, what is it with these offensive linemen? They retire, they lose all this weight. I mean, you look fabulous. I mean, from what you were as an NFL player, I mean, you lost a lot of weight. What have you been doing?
Yeah, here's what happens, guys. There's two things. Well, one, you get tired of sweating walking upstairs. That sucks, right? And the other thing is all offensive linemen weigh about, let's say we weigh about 300 pounds. Everybody I know went 50 pounds one way or the other, right? You're either down 220, 250, or you're like 360. And you don't want to be at 360. So I chose the lesser of the two evils, right? I can't be big and strong anymore. That sucks. But I don't sweat walking upstairs. So yeah, you take what you can get.
Oh, I'm telling you, man. I see some of these guys that retire. They got like 6-8 packs, and they're running in these triathlons and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. And we just thought we lost Mike Wall, but he'll pop back in. See, I told you it was Mike Wall. How many times do I have to tell you? You should take my word for it. You're the one who tells me that I don't know how to pronounce names over here. But we got him back on. Mike Wall, everybody. So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career with the Packers? Most of your career was with the Packers. You had the opportunity, obviously. I think you played a little bit with Brett Favre. And you played with Aaron Rodgers. What was it like playing for two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time?
Yeah, so I didn't get a chance to play with Aaron. I moved on from Green Bay in 2005. I went to Carolina Panthers, took a free agent deal, and then that kind of started everything. There was a bunch of guys. There was mass exodus from Green Bay. Ted Thompson became the general manager and started cleaning house a little bit. Brett got a little hot under the collar, and then that started his whole isn't he going to retire? I think they drafted Aaron the next year. He was sitting for 3 years, and then he started coming on the scene maybe 2008. I think that's right.
So, in terms of your camp that you're running, or your company you're running now, you were talking about you teach offensive line play for the most part. It seems like a lot of the game now is moving towards more shifty offensive linemen in comparison to like the big mauler types. Do you see that kind of thing into the game now, and how does that differ the way you teach your? And we lost him again.
It's all right.
Oh no, he's in audio. Oh, sorry.
Hey, sorry guys. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the connection here. Yeah, to answer your question, I don't only work with football players. I work with computational sports. Any computational sport, I work with those athletes. But to answer your question, you do see that shift. I think about 10 years ago, they started looking at more basketball types, and what it's really done from a perspective of an old head who just likes running the ball and beating people up. It's kind of taken a lot of that natural aggression that some of us had. It's kind of gone away. And so when you see a guy that's like a Quentin Nelson, that's like a Trent Williams, guys that are not only great athletes, but just have that mindset of, hey man, I'm going here to do some serious work. They stand out a little bit more now than maybe they did back then. I think there's a huge opportunity right now in football at the offensive line position to come in, be a technical master, but just be that kind of guy that wants to finish through the whistle, finish through the echo of the whistle. Right, and be able to put guys on piles again. Guys like that are a hot commodity, man. They can make a ton of money in this league, be famous, do all the things they want to do, because there's a very large amount of basketball players who just aren't really about that life.
Now, you brought up an interesting thing. Now, obviously, when you win any battle in the trenches, whether you're an offensive or defensive lineman, you have to have a certain mindset of you're just going to go and be the toughest guy in the room. I think that would be pretty fair to say. Is that something you're taught in Pee Wee, or are you just born with it? How do you get that type of mindset of every snap, I'm going to have to punch this guy as hard as I can in the chest and hope to God that he doesn't move me backwards 5 feet?
You know what? Honestly, guys, everything we do in sports is just about trying to find confidence, right? That's all the coaches are trying to get out of those players, just trying to come into the game as confident as possible. And I always talk about confidence and preparation. So I wasn't born to be an offensive lineman necessarily. I didn't grow up that way. I played quarterback in high school. But what happens is you understand what the mechanics of your success look like. You work like absolute hell to get them. You take confidence in the preparation that you put in to get ready, and then those game days, those opportunities kind of demonstrate how much work you've put in and how much joy that brings to you. When you get those opportunities, you just make the most of them. And for a sport and for a position like offensive line, being trying to punch a hole through somebody's chest, trying to finish somebody over the pile, trying to make people quit, right? Like it's me versus you. I want to make you quit. And just that mentality, that just comes with a lot of, hours and hours and hours and hours of work, and just respecting the process, respecting the work you put in.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawk guard Mike Wall. See, I got it right this time, Mike. There you go. Anyways, you talk about the offensive line, and it's 5 guys playing on the offensive line. They all have to work together, and really getting the quarterback and protecting the quarterback and putting the quarterback into position to make the right play and the right throw. When you look at some of the quarterbacks these days and some of the offensive linemen these days, is there an offensive lineman that you see in the league right now that reminds you of you when you played the game?
I really like the guys in Cleveland. I think both Batonio and Whitetail, I think those guys are just solid. They're guys that weren't necessarily the biggest commodities coming out, but they're extremely well coached. They're very professional. And I think they have a motto, the same motto we have, man. It's like you work hard, you kick ass, and you enjoy doing both. And I love that attitude. I love the way they finish. Master technicians, just solid players. There's a handful of guys in the league that can really play right now. But I would say that the level of play between the elite and then everybody else is pretty steep. When you look at guys like Quentin Nelson, you look at Batonio and those guys, the difference between them and even the middle tier guys, I think, is pretty drastic right now. And again, it's a testament to how hard they work.
So I want to go back to the Packers, and you got a teammate that was just inducted into the Hall of Fame in Leroy Butler. So what was he like as a teammate on and off the field?
Yeah, he was awesome, man. So Leroy, he was the leader of the team. Him and Reggie, leader of the defense, at least when I got there in 1998. They still had an awesome defense. I think I want to say they were ranked in the top 3 in defense that year. I think Reggie had one of his better sack years, and then he went on to retire that year, and then eventually ended up in Carolina. But the thing about those guys is they really know how to run a locker room. They weren't just leaders on the field. They were leaders off the field, the way they carry themselves. And the thing I learned from guys like Leroy, guys like Brett, guys like Reggie was, in football, you always think you have to manufacture emotion, right? We think we have to get up and really get hyped up, listen to Pantera, bang our head against the wall, right? We all watch the program, all this crazy stuff they're doing in there because, at base level, it's one of those sports that you're a little bit afraid. People come in afraid. They've been taught that, okay, you might get hurt, you might get embarrassed, you might get physically manhandled by somebody else. So we try to manufacture emotion. And what those guys taught me, Leroy in particular, and to go along with Brett is man, if you just work hard, you confident in your preparation, you can go out on Sundays and you don't have to manufacture anything. You can just be good. Like, it's okay to be good. It's okay to just be good. Know you're going to have a good game. Know you're going to dominate your opponent. Love doing what you do. Love working with the people that you're working with, and enjoy yourself. And I think that was probably the best lesson that group of leaders taught me.
You brought up your teammates. You've actually played with a couple of characters. When you went to Carolina for your Pro Bowl season, there's Steve Smith there. Jake Delhomme's been known to kind of been, a little bit of a goofster from what I've understood. Is there a guy that stood out as, oh my God, this guy's just on a different realm of crazy? And then there's
Steve.
Brett Favre.
Yeah, Steve's different. Steve's nuts. Like, and I say that I love that guy. I went to Carolina because they had the top defense that I had seen, that I had played against in the last 2 years. We played them 2 years in a row. They had Chris Jenkins, Mike Rucker, Pep, Dan Morgan, all those guys are stacked, man. And I went there because the other reason was Steve Smith, because you watch that guy play. It's like you can't help but want to play with a dude like that. And he was all kinds of nuts. But he was so methodical in the way that he went about making people feel bad about themselves on the field that I remember we're playing Atlanta. I don't even know if he had a catch at halftime, but I think D'Angelo Hall had like 150 yards and personal foul penalties and holding penalties. And PI. He could just get under your skin. He did it to everybody. He was a little bit of a loose cannon, right? Like his emotions could overflow from time to time. But I don't think I've ever been around a guy who's as competitive as Steve Smith was.
We are talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawk guard Mike Wall. Mike, we have had a lot of ex-NFL players on the show, and we talk about this because it's really affected the NFL for the last 6-7 years, the CTE situation with the brain trauma, the concussion trauma. We saw that in the Super Bowl with the concussions throughout the playoffs. When you look at all these stories, Roger Goodell, the NFL getting sued for over $100 million, and you look at these players, I don't think these players have been taken care of enough, even with the lawsuit that they have. When you look at all the things that we've heard and all these players, Patrick Willis retiring early, DeBrickashaw Ferguson retiring early, all these great young superstar players, Calvin Johnson retiring early. Are you surprised? And do you like what the NFL is doing moving forward, the way the league has changed?
In terms of safety protocols?
Yes.
Honestly, I think it's dishing. I mean, the league's there to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
The league's there to make money for their owners. So everything they're doing is based off that fact, right? So anything they do from a safety perspective is, and we've seen it already. They cut down the amount of contact we can have. They try to eliminate a lot of the penalties that really affect defensive players, right? Which has allowed, honestly, to a poor brand of football has showed up. Like quarterbacks are basically not getting punished for making bad throws because the defenders can't take the heads off their receivers. But everything they do, I mean, if we get down to it, I'm a little bit cynical about it probably, but when you get down to it, they're really just trying to extend the season. They already did it to 17 games. I'm sure they're going to try to do it to 18. And so that whole thing is really a money grab. How much are they really trying to help out those ex-players? There's a reason they're lawsuits, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're lawsuits because they're not going quietly.
Right.
So when you ask me, am I happy with the job they're doing from that perspective? Anything that you can do to elongate somebody's career is probably a good thing, as long as it's not at the expense of the purity of the sport or what that person can do in their own way to kind of make themselves stand out and have the career that they want. And I don't necessarily like all the rule changes that have come about, because I think it takes away from a lot of the kind of the visceral action of the sport that I love, the part of the violence and all of that I really enjoyed. I think taking away headshots and putting in knee shots and ankle shots is not a net win at all. So there's a lot of things going around, but certainly I think using proper form, like tackling with shoulder tackling, the advent of shoulder tackling and making that a thing now, and making that a best practice method, understanding that that's not just a safety thing, that's a performance thing. Like you tackle people to the ground better, when you're able to go shoulder contact. So there's some of these things that have been instituted that are great, I think, but overall, I always kind of look at the NFL as they're really just trying to make as much money as they can for the owners, and we'll leave it at that.
So is there anything specific you would change about the way they're operating in those areas? Maybe you're saying the rule change is obviously one that you would go back to some old school rules, but is there anything like under the radar that you would do if you were?
Well, I mean, listen, guys, it's as simple as this, right? You take away practice time from teams, and now the teams don't operate at the same level. Like when I watch, you guys watch the sport maybe, and you see all these great athletes, you see these great schemes. I watch guys kind of fumbling around with their footwork. I watch guys that are going into contact in like wrong body positions. So that's the kind of stuff that I watch. And so when I see the guys aren't operating at necessarily as high a level as they used to, I look at it like, well, we should be practicing more. But for a number of reasons, we can go into the Jeff Saturday stories and all why we're not allowed to put a ball in our hands until April. There's a bunch of stuff that's happened from here to there, but ultimately, I just want to see the best product out on the field as we can, and as long as they're working towards doing that, like I'm all for it.
So now that we're in kind of the off season, the next step is obviously the NFL draft. Can you take us through what these kids do going to the combine, getting ready for the draft, kind of learning their way around the league? Can you express how your rookie combine was?
Yeah, so the combines and that whole experience is interesting, right? Because and especially now because they have all of these professionals. We saw the agents are they take them to the special combine prep place, and they're all over the country. And it's interesting because a lot of these kids are prepping for something that's not necessarily going to help them during the season, like this combine, running a 40, learning how to start, spending all that time working on your 225 bench. I mean, yeah, there's some marginal benefit there, but ultimately that doesn't help you get a job, right? This is all, again, what we're talking about before. The combine's really for TV. It's really for marketing. You could get your medical done anywhere, and you could just have pro days where we can see how well this guy can really move in a football capacity, right? So I think for guys now, there's a ton of pressure because there's so much media out there. There's so much access to information. I think net it's all good because it is good for the league. It does drive revenue, but my focus always when I talk to athletes, especially guys coming, is like, the combine is going to get you some chat, but you're going to make the team based on whether or not you can perform with your pads on, and that's what we really want to focus on in these next couple months. Work on the strength and conditioning and movement patterns that are really going to help you kind of play this sport on the field better. We want to improve your on-field performance, not necessarily how you look in underwear.
We are talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wall. Now, Mike, you talk about the athletic ability of some of these players have now. I mean, you talk about the offensive linemen. I mean, you saw last year, a couple of years ago, Mekhi Beckham, he was running, he's 360 pounds. He runs a 5.5. I mean, it's ridiculous what these offensive tackles are running now. I mean, I can't wait to see what some of these tackles this year are going to run. Are you surprised of the athletic ability and the transition of what when you played the game and what they've turned into now, beast behemoths that are just unbelievable athletes?
So I'll tell you this. Walter Jones ran a 4.65. Remember that name?
Oh yeah, I remember Walter Jones. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Walter Jones ran a 4.65. That was a great tight end time about 8 years ago. Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I kind of look at it maybe a little bit differently than a lot of people. You have some big, tall, heavy guys that can run a 5.5 and everything. But Kai Becton's an absolute unit, man. I'm not disrespecting him at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to have a great career. I just think that on par with the amount of humans are going to evolve, continue to evolve generation to generation. But when I see these guys coming in, they're not necessarily as strong as they used to be because that point of emphasis isn't what it used to be, right? It's not much of a smash mouth football game. The game's changed, the game's evolved. So we see these guys now, and I'm always kind of really interested in how they bend, how they move. Certainly a guy like Mekhi Becton's like super, super impressive. But I look at a guy who's like 33 years old, like Trent Williams, and I go, that's probably the most impressive dude in the league right now, and he's 33. So I see Andrew Whitworth playing at 40. I'm like, how the hell is he playing at 40? I'm 44. I feel like I'm going to die every morning. And he's playing in the Super Bowl at 40 years old. So I'm just impressed with those guys, right? I start getting impressed by the guys who have the durability and the sustainability of a long term to be that kind of athlete. Those guys are special, man.
So back to the other side of the ball, is there a particular pass rusher or defensive lineman that was the hardest to face in your career? So who would that be and why?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh man, I came into the league. I was in the NFC North, so we had Luther Ellis, back then Warren Sapp. But we had this dude named John Randall for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if you heard of him.
Yes,
man, I'll tell you the worst feeling in the world is I lined up my second year. I was starting at left guard. And I remember the first third and 8, the first third down. I heard he talked, and I heard that he would study the media guide.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a nickname. I was nicknamed after Ronnie Beagle, who played in the Naval Academy in 1945. Because my friends called me Beagle. So third and 8, man, we're in the huddle, and I just hear Beagle. And I turned around. I was like, "Oh, I'm coming." I turned back around and went, "Oh shit! I'm in some real trouble." This dude that guy was unbelievable. He was so good. He would beat you, and then he would spin back into place, and then he'd beat you again and get a sack on the third move. Like he was that nasty.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Well, no, I thought there was more stories.
No, that was the story.
So Mike, obviously, I personally think that you are kind of cut out of this Dan Campbell cloth of this is how it is. I'm going to be brutally honest and upfront. Do you have any aspirations of coaching? Just out of curiosity now, because now that I'm talking to you, I get like the sense that you could really get a couple of guys to go run through a wall.
Yeah, I love working with athletes, man. That's my whole goal is just to make, the guys that are really committed to the cause, I just want to make them as good as they can. I want to help them on that journey. I do that in the private sector now. I was in coaching for a couple of years, and I'm fulfilled in what I'm doing now. I love working with it. If I get chances to go consult with teams and work with coaches, and I've got a coach education program, a coach development program as well. So, listen, I love the journey. I love being a part of sports. And again, when you find guys that are committed to the cause, like I wrote a paper about being a professional athlete when I was like third grade, guys. I just interviewed Amon Green. he got in a fight with his teacher in 4th grade because he told him he was going to be a professional athlete. And it's like when you meet those people, right? You live that life, and all you really have to give back now is experiences and knowledge. And you meet those kind of people that are super committed, man. All we want to do is help them.
Well, I'm reading a little bit about you. And by the way, we are talking to ex-NFL player, Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wall. You played for Navy. What was it like playing in the Army-Navy game? Everybody talks about it. It's a crazy game. Both teams can't stand each other. What is it like playing in those big games?
It's cool. The pomp and circumstance around that game is awesome. And what's nuts about that game is like, I think back in the day when we were playing, both teams were like top 25. So we were good, not great. And we're never going to be confused with Ohio State or anything, right? But we had pretty competitive teams. But you're getting these, they put these videos up on the screen during all the timeouts, and they're from all over the world. I mean, Bering Straits, Afghanistan, you got people over. I mean, every base in the world is putting together these like hype videos. And you just realize, like, man, people actually care about this. Like, they really care. Like, days are like the work shift is stopped at these bases to watch this game. And that part of it was it was pretty gnarly because, we're working out of, I think we were independent. And the biggest game we played every year was obviously Notre Dame, but that wasn't a game that we were expected to win. This game, you kind of came in and we knew all eyes were on us back in the day. I think that was the only game on that Saturday before they started having some of these like Big 12, Pac-12 championships on that day. That was the only game in town. So all eyes were on us. It was our time to kind of shine. And it was a lot of fun. It's a special moment for sure.
So what was the Naval Academy experience like outside of football? What was the training like? What did you end up doing?
I wasn't built out to be in the Navy. I mean, I always tell guys this. There's three kinds of people that went to the Naval Academy. There's guys like me who I wanted to play Division I college ball, and that was my option. So there's a handful of guys like me. And then there's a handful of guys who got their lunch money stolen every day in high school. And they were like, we're going here to make up for that. Like, we're going to be that. We're going to be these hardo, kind of cadre guys to get, because in the academy, you become, you gain authority just by getting older, right? It's not it's not merit based. It's just, if you're a sophomore and I'm a freshman, you can just dump all over me. So there's a handful of those guys too. And then there's just like really sweet spot of great high school student athletes, good dudes, probably, chess club president, class president, ran the school newspaper, whatever, just good human beings. And those guys are the people that should be there. They should just dump the rest of us, and they should all be there, because I was there, and I love the friends that I made, the relationships that I had with football. But being in the military or being at the academy really wasn't the college experience I was looking for.
So I always ask this question to guys that had a long tenured time in the league, because obviously retirement can go very south for some guys. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know if they've planned for it correctly. Do you have any advice to the young kids now on how to kind of know when it's time and what to do during their tenure in the league, so that way when it is time, they're prepared for it?
This is probably a controversial statement, because I think a lot of people, especially with the brand awareness that these players have now, they're always looking to the next thing. But I always looked at it this way. They pay you an ungodly amount of money to do something that you've been wanting to do since you were 6 years old. You should go do it as best you can. Ride it until they buck you off. Go have as much fun, work as hard, be the best version of yourself. I can't tell you how many teammates I had that I've talked to since the retirement. They said, man, I wish I would have given it the respect it deserves. I wish I would have put in a little bit more. I could have been better. I could have done more. These guys are pro athletes, had great careers, and they're feeling that way. They have that regret, man. You never want to live with that regret. So, I tell athletes now, you're probably going to live to be 100 years old. You want to spend your 20s, some of your 30s doing the thing that you love as well as you can, get paid an absolute boatload of money for it. What do you got to worry about? Don't worry about anything else. Put yourself in place. Make sure if you have interests, if you have hobbies, if you have things you want to be focusing on outside of ball, great, but never let it intersect with football. The best thing that athletes do now, the athletes of this generation, is they get a bunch of their buddies and they help them run their little businesses, right? They help them manage their lives. They help them just do the things that take away from you being the best version of yourself on the field. And so when you have guys like that around you, people that you trust, people that you surround yourself with, they can be your business managers. They can kind of work on operations for you. They can kind of vet out if you're wanting to get into NFTs, you want to get into the music business. Let them do it. right? Take a chunk of money, put it aside, let them do it, go let them explore, and work on being the best version of yourself on the field, because when it's over, it's over. You're not going to get that time back. You're going to have so much time during the rest of your life to kind of explore these other options.
As you guys know, we are talking to former Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wall. Last question for us before we let you go, because we know you're a busy guy. You got a family, and you're getting ready for whatever you're going to be doing tomorrow. We don't want to bother you too long. Your favorite Brett Favre story? Is there a story that you can remember that you can tell everybody about Brett Favre, of the player that he is on and off the field?
Well, everybody usually points to the game, the Monday night game against the Raiders after his dad passed away.
Yes.
And honestly, that was the heaviest football game I've ever been. I mean, that's the heaviest thing I've ever been a part of. I mean, what he did that day that was the most legendary sports thing I've ever been a part of, I've ever seen. I mean, you can't make up how well he played under those circumstances, and how it's just like every single thing that day worked, and how down he was. He was on tears the entire time on the sidelines. Everybody was emotional. It was nuts. Having said that, that dude was one of the best jokesters you've ever been around. And I'll never forget. So I'm not going to name the coach, but during a preseason game, Brett's like, "Hey, you need to stand in front of me. I got to take a leak." And they weren't allowed to go into the tunnel. So he ends up on the sidelines, taking a leak all over the back of this guy's pants. Just spraying him in the middle of the second or third quarter. He's already out of the game in the preseason game. You're just going like, only a quarterback could get away with doing that.
You mean only Brett Favre could get away with doing that?
Yeah, let me tell you, Brett's the kind of guy that he put icy hot in the front of my pad, of my forehead pad, in my helmet one day on a Friday after we had Fast Fridays, and you put icy hot on your forehead, you start sweating, right? It gets in your eyes, and I'm bald. It's like I got some real problems. I got snot, tears everywhere, and I'm thinking I am going to kill whoever did this. Like this person is dead. Their car's gone. I'm gonna flip their car over. I'm not sure. But you find out it's the quarterback, and you find out not as the quarterback, it was Brett, and you go, good one, man. You got me good. Like, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you don't want to get him angry because he'll be telling the coach to sit you. So there you go. I know all about that. Absolutely. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Mike, why don't you tell the fans how they can find you on social media?
Yeah, check me out on Twitter, Mike Wall 68, WAHLE, Mike Wall 68 on Twitter, and then Process to Perform on Instagram.
Mike, we would definitely like to get you on very, very soon as the offseason progresses and free agency, and then obviously the draft, because you work with a lot of these kids. Maybe during our draft show, maybe we'll get you on and we'll talk a little bit about the draft. Maybe you know some of the kids that are going to be drafted in the first, second, third round.
There's a lot of interior offensive linemen.
Absolutely.
This draft.
Maybe we'll get some information from you so everybody can get to know the player and the strengths and the weaknesses of the offensive linemen that are in this year's draft.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. Former Packers, Panthers, Seahawk guard, Mike Wall. We actually, this time, Speedy, we pronounced his name right. I told you it was Wall. You should have listened to me. But Mike, fantastic, fantastic guy. Great stories. Brett Favre. I mean, the guy played. He played with obviously Smith. I mean, he played with some great players that we all talk about, and some of the fantastic stories that he tells us. It's fantastic. Some of these guys that we talk to, they have a story after a story after a story. And what really is amazing about it is you don't realize some of these guys. We know about these guys. We know about. Obviously, Brett Favre and the stories, because he played for the Jets, and there was a couple of Jet players that I know that told me a couple of stories of pranks that he did in preseason games and off the field that was very, very funny. And then you hear it from Mike. He's telling you that guy was a prankster and a funny guy, and even the legendary game. I watched that game like 3-4 times when his father passed away, and I think he had 5 touchdowns in that game. He was fantastic in the game. He had one of the greatest games I've ever seen on a football field. So fantastic interview. Really, really nice guy. And we're definitely going to get him on again, Speedy. So keep him in the loop. Just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, guess what we're going to get into? we're going to get into some baseball conversation, which seems like it keeps on progressing. It keeps on progressing. And we're going to get into the Wolverines. Yes. Juwan Howard likes to beat up people, beat up coaches on the sidelines. We'll get into that and what the NCAA need to do to keep these coaches in their seats when we come back here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, this is the Sports Loudmouths. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy, Petey, Tyler Harrison. 631-672-3108 is the number. You can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Download our app like on iOS, WWSRN or Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We were just talking to Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks former guard, Mike Wall. Very, very nice guy. Great interview. Told us some fantastic stories. Just great. And all these guys that you get on the show, Speedy, they just have great, great personalities and told us. And he's a teacher, teacher of the game and just very well spoken. A lot of these ex-athletes, some of them are just like, they just don't care. They come on these shows and they just throw whatever. They throw you a loop and they just ride with it. Mike was really, really cool and down to earth. And most of the guests that we get on the show are just fantastic. So thank you to Mike Wall for joining us. We definitely got to get into the Wolverine situation with Michigan and Juwan Howard. But before we get into that, I want to get into this baseball thing. And before we get into the strike and the lockout, whatever you call it, there are stories coming out from New England. Not New England, from the Braves, that Freddie Freeman, who there are 3 teams very, very interested that are definitely on the works of trying to go after him. The Milwaukee Brewers, the New York Yankees, and the Chicago Cubs are the 3 teams. If he does not re-sign with the Braves, those are the 3 teams when this lockout is over that are going to gun for him. It's very, very interesting when you read this story that Freddie Freeman absolutely, after they won the World Series, wanted to sign before the lockout to the Braves. And being that the lockout was here and they don't know when the lockout is going to be over, I know everybody thinks the reason why he didn't sign the contract is because after the lockout is over, there'll be more money to be won for him with the new salary cap, the new way they're going to restructure the CBA for these players. But what I'm reading now is that Freddie Freeman wanted to be signed before this lockout and that he's not happy with the Atlanta Braves. And moving after this lockout, he could be looking to another destination. And the 3 teams that I've been reading, the Chicago Cubs, the New York Yankees, and the Milwaukee Brewers are the 3 teams that he's very much interested in, and the 3 teams that are very interested in landing the superstar first baseman. Speedy, what are your thoughts to this story?
I'm surprised because I thought the Braves would definitely have more of a push with having a lot of good contracts on their roster right now. They're not overpaying a lot of guys. They purged a lot of the old guys they had at the beginning of their initial rebuild, and now all of a sudden they've been the second or third best team in baseball for the last 5 years, and obviously just won the World Series. So definitely surprising they wouldn't have pushed harder for that kind of a veteran leader, a guy that could be a future Hall of Famer, a guy that's been clutch. He's been very well-rounded, best first baseman in baseball right now.
He's been the last 3 years, 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And it's just surprising that they wouldn't have done it a little quicker. Again, maybe they had other guys on their mind. Maybe they anticipated that, maybe they didn't anticipate the lockout going this quickly, happening this long, whatever it was, that they got kind of blindsided by it. Now, I still think there's a chance he'll go back.
Absolutely.
I don't think he's frustrated.
They
with
better
them,
open up their pockets because he's not happy.
But it's still something where if the Brewers, let's say the Brewers, because they're in position because they have so much pitching. If
Brewers,
the Brewers,
Cubs, and the Yankees.
If the Brewers, for example, I'm just using
and the Yankees are the number one team of his preference.
But I only mention up the Brewers just because they have all the pitching that they're going to push harder for offense, really, than especially because they're not going to go after any other pitching where they could overpay him if they need to overpay him, because the Yankees are obviously going to spend a lot of money, and even the Braves at their peak, we've seen them spend money at certain stretches of their history too, in the 90s. Even the start of 2010s with the two Uptons and all those guys. So they had their stretches too. They're not a notoriously cheap franchise either. So we'll see what ends up happening. I still think he'll end up going back eventually, but it's going to be harder than they thought, though, especially now with these other teams in the mix too, the Cubs and the Brewers. I guess you could expect it, but the Yankees were obvious. That was probably the favorite if they left for a while, but now the Cubs and Brewers in the mix, so it's definitely going to make it spicier.
How about you, Tyler? What are your thoughts to Freddie Freeman not being very happy with the Braves, not re-signing him before the lockout? Now, again, I will say it again. A lot of people believe that the Braves were going to wait until the lockout is over, where they can offer him more money with the new rules, especially with the luxury tax that will be, obviously pushed even further. What are your thoughts to Freddie Freeman possibly parting ways with the Braves after the lockout?
I still say the Braves are the favorites to get him. I don't think he wants to leave, and I think he wants to be there. I think right now he's just a little insulted that they didn't give him what he wanted. Could the lockout help him? It's definitely going to help him. He's definitely going to get more money post-lockout than he would have had if he had signed when he wanted to. I don't see how the Dodgers aren't linked in this.
They're not.
Don't count them out.
Their luxury tax is so high. There's no way the Dodgers are involved with this.
That's great.
There's
but
no way.
Don't count them out. They want him. They'll be in the mix. I'm not saying they get him.
There's
but
no
don't count
chance
them
in
out.
hell they have a chance to get him.
And if I'm the Dodgers and I know the Yankees are involved, I'm just going to start the bidding war just so you have to spend more.
No, well, there's no rumors or any stories that came out that the Dodgers are involved with Freddie Freeman. There are 3 teams that are absolutely involved with it if the Braves do not get him. And the Yankees, obviously the number one team. The Brewers have slowly moved into second. And then obviously the Cubs in third. I don't see him going to the Cubs. I see there's a better chance of him going to the Brewers if he stays in the National League. But I don't see him staying in the National League. If he doesn't sign with the Braves, he's going to go to the American League East from the NL East and go and play for the Yankees. That makes a lot of sense with the short porch, left-handed power. Yankees need a top-end first baseman to play that position, and that could solidify the infield that they've been wanting to solidify for a very long time.
Nathan says, awesome interview with Mike.
Thank you.
Snug says, Freddie Freeman of the Long Island Ducks.
No, that could happen.
If Freddie Freeman can get some alone time with Speedy's dog, he's coming to New York for sure.
Mm.
My dog is not in New York, Snug. And then Nathan says, what about Carlos Correa?
I don't know what's going on with Carlos Correa. Now, I do believe that the Yankees are interested in Carlos Correa, but there's no way the Yankees are giving Carlos Correa $300 million.
No.
And being that it's been pushed off after the lockout and all these other shortstops that got the contracts they got, Seager getting the $300 million contract from the Texas Rangers that he got, I can't even. Carlos Correa is the best shortstop that was available going into the offseason. He's fantastic. He's a great, great player. There is no way, and he wants to be a Yankee so bad. He grew up an Alex Rodriguez fan, and he was a Yankee fan growing up. He loved Alex Rodriguez on the Yankees. I'm telling you this right now. The Yankees aren't giving him $300 million. They're just not. I could see the Yankees offering him $240, $230, maybe. I mean, but there are other teams that might offer him a little bit more than that. And I don't see a team giving him $300 million, especially waiting after this lockout. I think he's gonna be saddened from the money that he's going to get offered. He's not getting Corey Seager money. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I think Corey Seager is also kind of an exception to the market too, where he got badly overpaid by the Rangers, a desperate move for them, for a guy that's been injury prone throughout his career. Great in the playoffs, was the Dodgers, I think NLCS MVP, and was
so
very
is
good
Carlos
in the World
Correa. He's a
Series.
great playoff player.
So yeah, there's definitely some leeway there, but still 10 years, 325. For a guy that's had a lot of these injury issues, definitely shows more desperation. I don't think that's initially going to be market value. Now, Correa might get that from one team, maybe another team like not the Rangers specifically, but a team in a similar situation might swing for the fences, just have a big name on the roster. So he might get that money from there, but it's not going to necessarily be market value. The other thing to judge too is Trevor Story, because he hasn't been signed yet either.
That's another name that the Yankees are definitely talking, because you could bring him in 1 year. He's very close with DJ LeMahieu. DJ's been really pushing for Trevor Story to come to the Yankees, but the Yankees, they have too many good young shortstops. They're talking. Volpe could make the team. Parisi, whatever, Parizzo, whatever his name is, another shortstop. Then they got the best young Dominican Republic, Dominican shortstop. He's like 16 years old. Some people think he's gonna be a star. The Yankees are stocked with shortstops. They don't really need all these guys. And now there are stories coming out that the Yankees might be looking to move one or maybe the two of these guys for pitching. And Volpe came out and said that he wants to be a Yankee. He wants to have the opportunity to show his skill with the Yankees. But the Yankees might be looking in a different way of rebuilding this team a little bit quicker. And if it is Carlos Correa, why would you keep Volpe and Pareza, whatever his name is?
Yeah.
Why would they do that when you're going to have to sign Correa, who's 26 years old? You're going to have to sign him to a 7, 8, maybe 9-year deal. You're going to be strapped with him. Why would you bring these guys up? You might as well use them as trade pieces for a pitcher or two.
Right. Now, it's more likely, I think, for Story, only because I think, one, the LeMahieu connection, and two, I don't know if he's going to demand as much money as Correa is. Now, he's been...
By the way, I heard they're moving DJ LeMahieu to possibly third.
Which is interesting. I would not rule that out, because Gleyber Torres could play second then in that case.
That's what they're doing.
And then you have, if you were to get Story, you'd have an infield that's familiar with each other on the left side. And that's why I think he might take a little less to go to the Yankees if the Yankees are, I don't know if the Yankees are going to lowball him, but they're still going to.
No, they'll give him 15, 16 million.
Right.
That's what he's going to get.
I don't think they're going to give him 300 million like the Seager contract.
No, they gave DJ LeMahieu, I think they gave him a 2-year, 26.
Well, yeah, LeMahieu's contract was great. It was 6 years, 87, and it was.
No, I'm talking about the first one before
the first one,
him.
Yeah,
they gave him a 2-year, 24 or $23 million contract. I say if you want Trevor Stories, you give him a 2-year with a 1-year option, a one year extra option, player team option, where you give him close to like 30 million. Right. I could see the Yankees doing that.
Now the other thing too,
33 million.
The other thing too is because Story has been more durable in his career too, but the Yankees having all these other injury-prone players, do they want to take a chance on a thing like Correa? Now, I don't think either of these guys are going to be signed right away once this lockout does end, because I do think the teams are going to have trouble trying to decide a market value, because I don't think Seager is going to be the base of the market. And I also think Correa is definitely going to be pushing for the more money. I know the Astros cheated, so it's not going to be a legitimate championship, but in his mind, he'll think that way.
Could the Astros give him a 1-year deal and he goes back to the Astros and wait until the offseason after the lockout?
They tend to funnel away players quickly, so I don't think that's going to happen. I think Correa is going to chase the money, because I think he's going to chase that big contract. I think he'll get it from not necessarily a contending, a massive World Series.
Could the Yankees give him that contract?
The Yankees probably could, but you're right. I think the Yankees aren't going to approach it like that, where they're going to push hard if it does get too steep, the price does later. I think these guys are going to be negotiated for quite a while, and both Story and Correa are going to try to budge and try to set the market.
You did hear from Brian Cashman that he will never give another player more than a 7-year contract. He already came out and said that. He's not going to offer anything more than that. So I think he's going to stay stern on that. Even with, and I do believe Aaron Judge, when this is over, the Yankees will figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to renegotiate Aaron Judge's contract and extend him. I do believe the Yankees will do that first, or even second, or whatever they do with Correa. Now, if they do decide to bring in Correa, I would say Aaron Judge is as good as buy. I mean, I don't see them giving Aaron Judge because if you're going to give Carlos Correa 240, you have Giancarlo Stanton, who is still under. He's going to be making at least $200 million more. I mean, you're going to have to give Gleyber Torres, if you decide to keep him, an extension. I mean, there's too many guys that you're going to have to pay. And I don't see the Yankees doing that. They made out with DJ LeMahieu. Right. They really did. DJ LeMahieu taking that 6-year, $80 million or $90 million, that was a steal for the Yankees. He didn't have a good year last year. I still expect it. I still think, what is he, 31, 32? I still think he has 3 more good years at hitting left in him, where I think he still can hit. I just had an off season last year, so they got to win on that. I think they got a win on the center fielder that can't stay healthy. Hicks, I think he's a win. I mean, obviously he can't stay healthy. When Aaron Hicks does play, he's a top 10, center fielder in this league. He can give you power on both sides of the plate, and he can do the things that you need him to do. But I do believe that the reason why the Yankees gave him that extension is because it's a good contract, where if he has a good year this year and they decide, hey, you know what? We can move Aaron Hicks at the trade deadline and get something back for him, a pitcher back for him. They'll do that because you can find a center fielder that can play defense. You don't need a lot of power in that, in that center field position, especially with Giancarlo over there and Aaron Judge on the other side. So I think the Yankees are set where they could do a lot of different things, and they have a lot of pieces that they can move with the players that they have. I mean, Tyler, you're a Yankee fan, and obviously we know what you think of the team and the organization right now. I mean, everything that we've said, Carlos Correa, Freeman, I do believe one superstar will be a Yankee after this lockout. Who do you think it is, and where do you think the Yankees go when this lockout is over?
I don't want either of them. I want freaking pitching. That's what I want, because the Yankees can't pitch. The problem is pitching. They have no bullpen help. They have no starting help after Garrett Cole.
There's a lot of great bullpen players available.
That's great. And I've been hearing no links to anything other than Freddie Freeman and Carlos Correa. I certainly do not want Carlos Correa's attitude here. I would love Trevor Story. I think Trevor Story is going to be one of those guys that comes here, plays baseball, and just keeps his mouth shut.
Hold on one second. So let me get this straight. You would rather Trevor Story, who, let's be honest, is not a great playoff player. Matter of fact, hasn't done anything in the playoffs. To a guy like Carlos Correa, who is one of the best playoff right-handed hitters in baseball. Okay, some of the stuff that you say doesn't make sense, Tyler. I mean, Trevor Story, Carlos Correa. Who do I want? If you could get Carlos Correa for $220 million, I would take that in a heartbeat over Trevor Story.
Great.
Carlos Correa is that much better than Trevor Story.
Haven't you been the one for the past 8 weeks, every other day, shouting Volpe, Volpe, Volpe from the mountaintop?
Yep.
Okay, so you want to create another logjam, and then what? Move Carlos Correa when he's 33, 34, so Volpe can be a shortstop.
How about this? They could decide Volpe is going to take a couple of years to get to the position. They could decide.
You told me he could be ready by spring.
That's true, but they can hold on to Volpe. They don't have to rush him up. And they have Pariza, who they could trade and do whatever they want with him. Maybe they decide, you know what? Gleyber Torres has a good year. Let's trade him for a pitcher. We can get a fantastic pitcher for Gleyber Torres and bring Volpe up as the second baseman for right now in the beginning. As he grows into the position, you maneuver Carlos Correa to second base, which, let me guess, we've seen this before. We've seen this with teams over the years. Move Correa to second, and then eventually move Volpe to the shortstop position, and then you solidify your infield for many, many years to come. The Yankees could absolutely do that if they feel that Carlos Correa is a better fit than Gleyber Torres is, especially if he starts the season strong, as well as I believe he will have this season, who started off very slow this year because of injury.
Do you live in Candyland?
I don't live in Candyland.
What I need is I need answers.
I know you live in
I'm so sick and tired of Yankee fans shouting best paid scenario. Okay, newsflash. You haven't been right in 6 years. That's why the New York, not you as in just you, but there are Yankee fans. Oh, we're going to get A, B, and C, and then we're just going to run off the mountaintops. Okay, so let's just say this won't happen, but let's just say you get Freddie Freeman and Carlos Correa. Great. You have no catcher worth noting a damn. You have no center fielder worth giving a damn. Jason Dominguez says he wants to be up by 21. That's what, 2 years from now? Okay. Aaron Hicks has played about, 80 games the past 3 years? Come on. You guys cannot stop living in this fantasy land of, the Yankees will just figure it out and they'll all fall in the lap. No, you need to actually have a plan. So LeMahieu goes to third base. Urshela, thank God he's gone. Why would you move?
They're going to keep Gio Urshela as the backup third baseman. You could move him around at shortstop, first base.
Gio Urshela is not going to take it. He was a borderline all-star last year.
Gio Urshela was not a borderline all-star last year. I don't know what you're talking about. He did not have a great year last year. I could go to Gio.
Not last year, the year,
but that's what I'm talking about. He's a free agent this year.
Great,
You're not
so
going
don't
to
bring him back at all.
They're going to bring him back. He wants to be here, and you could get him back on the cheap. You're not going to have to overpay Gio Urshela. Okay. Gio Urshela last year, let's see, 267, 14 home runs, 420 at bats,
how many
49
games?
RBIs. Doesn't say games right here. 420 at bats. So you do the math. He's got to play. He's played over 100 games. So, I mean, that's
those aren't terrible numbers, but regardless,
14 home runs and 49 RBIs. I mean,
the RBIs is a very misleading stat. He bats 7th or 8th.
267. I mean, the year before that, he had a better season.
No, that's why I was referring to that one, but whatever. Neither here nor there. All I'm saying is you can't keep telling me that we're going to go get these guys. Get a freaking pitcher. Build a pitching staff. Clearly, Atlanta knows what they're doing. They built a pitching staff. Milwaukee, they know what they're doing. They built a pitching staff. The Dodgers don't count because the Dodgers just buy everything. The New York Mets, they're building a pitching staff.
Well, they bought it too. But yeah.
Well, regardless, they're building it. DeGrom's there now.
The Mets have always had a good pitching staff, and it never worked out. None of them did, ever.
That's
Go
fine.
Look at their pitching staff. It
That
never
is fine.
worked out. They've had
And
all
I'm gonna
these
tell you another
aces, and never worked for the Mets.
I'm going to
never.
tell you one more thing.
Go ahead.
If Garrett Cole has another bad playoff run how he had this year, I would even be open to moving Garrett Cole.
Yeah, you're out of your mind.
Why?
You're on drugs.
So he's a top 5 pitcher in the game. That's great. Maybe you can't pitch in New York in the big moment. You can't go to Boston, get shelled like that, and then have another bad postseason performance and not have people start questioning you. That's just not going to happen. The New York Yankees have to do something because Brian Cashman, quite frankly, hasn't put a World Series contender on his own in about 4 years.
Any team that makes the playoffs is a World Series contender. Any team that makes the playoffs is a World Series contender.
That's great.
And it's stupid that you say that it's not.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
If you stop.
Yes, it is.
Take your Yankee goggles
It's
off
not Yankee
and
goggles.
look at the division. That's the best division in baseball.
That's right.
And the Yankees were 2 games away from finishing 4th and missing the playoffs altogether.
And if the Yankees...
Toronto's going to be better. Boston will probably be better. Then you've got Tampa
How
Bay.
is Toronto going to be better? Let's hear.
Because the young kids are going to be friggin' better.
Young kids who? What young kids?
Kevin Biggio will be better.
That's fine. That's
Vlad
hitters.
Guerrero's going to be just
That's
the same.
hitters. That's hitters. All hitters.
Bichette's going to be better.
All hitters. Yeah, go ahead.
And the
We're
pitching
talking about
staff
pitching.
of Toronto was better than the Yankees last
Really?
The
Because
second half, I'd say so.
They're not bringing back their ace. He's gone. He's gone. He's no longer with them. You make a face.
Robbie Ray
He's
is
gone.
there.
Yes, he's gone. Cy Young Award winner. Gone. He's not with the Blue Jays. So
Where'd he go?
Who? He's not with them.
But where'd he go?
I don't know. He signed somewhere else. He didn't
Who?
go with them. Go look where
Seattle.
Robbie.
I think it was Seattle.
Go where Robbie. He is not with the Blue Jays. So they're not the same team. And you're going to sit here and say, they're going to be a better team. They're not a better team. They're a worse team. So you don't know what you're talking about. You're sitting
You
here.
hope they're a worse
They
team.
are a worse team. They lost
hope
their
they'll play
they
better.
lost their ace. They lost their number 1 guy, the Cy Young winner. He goes over there to another team, Seattle, where they're going to have to play him 4 or 5 times. Okay, whatever. How many times they play him a year?
Yeah, 5 years, 115 was his contract in Seattle.
He's not. The Blue Jays are not better.
Kevin Gausman's there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Had
they
a
got
great year
Gosman
last
5
year.
years, 110. Yes, he did.
Jose Barrios is there. He's
Mhm.
freaking good.
Oh yeah, he's wonderful.
Ryu had a rough year, but he's probably
He's
gonna be
always
better.
every other year he's good.
And then that's,
Manoa was a good kid they had in
yeah,
the
so
second half of the
that's-
season.
Again, and then the Mona kid was 9-2.
Yes, and the only
Full season.
and the only pitcher
That
that
bullpen's a lot
the
better.
only
than
and
the Yankees have.
Gosman is coming to the American League at the American League East. He's never played in a division that good. Okay, Gosman's going to get smashed. Okay, you're going to fill Gosman in for Robbie Ray. That's great. The Cy Young winner for a guy that's never played in the American League East that has to play against
He has
Bombers.
He played for the
American
Orioles.
League.
Yeah.
Yeah, for how long? For how long?
6 years. 5, 6, 7 years.
He was on a shitty Orioles team.
What does that mean? And no, he was probably there when they were borderline
That
playoff team.
one playoff appearance.
Let's look at Gosman's numbers.
No, his numbers were never great. He had
Okay.
upside. They were never great with the Orioles,
But you
but
can't
that's also
say
the
that
Orioles.
because whatever he learned in San Francisco clearly worked. So whatever he's doing now works.
Let's look at Gosman's numbers when he was in Baltimore.
Well, usually that Snug says Freeman would be the best match with the Brewers. He's into the country
5.66, 3.57, 4.25, 3.61, and 4.68. Yeah, wonderful. He's great. Absolutely
two of those ERAs are
fantastic.
pretty good.
Absolutely fantastic.
Two of them were pretty good.
I don't know how you say two of them are pretty good.
Because a mid-3 ERA when you play the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Rays.
3 and 5, 7 and
multiple
7,
times
4
a year.
and 7, 9 and 12. Wonderful. 11 and 12. He's never had he had one.
Just admit the Yankees are in trouble here. Why can't you just say that?
I don't think that they are.
They were a game away from finishing 4th last year.
Fourth.
In their own division.
And they made the playoffs.
By a game.
By a game, because the last 3 games, they had to play another division game, and they were right on the earth to getting that wild card game at home. So I don't know what you're talking about, Tyler. And again, the Yankees made the playoffs. Any team that makes the playoffs is a World Series contender. So you sit here and you say whatever you want, and you complain and cry about it. I'm not going to say yes, you are, because
what am I crying about?
You're a typical
No,
that wants players and want them to buy
See,
players.
Fans like you make me sick because you want everything in the world.
No,
and
I don't. I'm not sitting here.
You said they were going to get Freddie Freeman and Carlos Correa.
I did not say that. Did I say that, Speedy?
You said Freeman.
I said
Hold on.
Freeman.
Freeman's the favorite. And you said you wouldn't be surprised if they got Correa too.
If they get one, they're not getting the other. They're not getting both of them, you idiot.
Well, now you're backtracking your statement. You said you wouldn't be surprised if they got
No,
Correa.
I'm not. No,
Play
I'm
it
not.
back. Play it back.
Play
I'm
everything
sick of
back.
doing this.
Play
Play it
everything
back.
back. You know what I'm sick of? Sitting here and listening to your big mouth with the Yankees, crying about this guy, crying about Aaron
They
Boone,
do the same
crying
thing every
about this,
offseason, and you
crying
continue to
about
praise
that,
Brian Cashman.
crying about this. Oh, they bring in Matt Scherzer, so let's jump off a bridge. Blah, 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 blah. You know what's going to be funny? You know what's going to be funny? When Max Scherzer comes in, he gets hurt from the Mets, and you'll make another excuse that the Yankees should have made that move, even with the injury that Max Scherzer has.
Scherzer not better than every Yankee not named Garrett Cole?
Who cares? What does that matter? Right now.
And
yes.
it's the biggest weakness on the team?
No, the bullpen is the biggest weakness of the Yankees team. The Yankees ERA pitching for the last 5 years have been amongst the league's top 10.
What's the best way
Doesn't
to
matter.
get a bad bullpen better? Have your starters go deeper in games.
And again, I'm going to tell you.
Okay, then.
And here I'm going to go again. I'm going to go again. If you go look at the Yankees ERA and whip in the last 5 years amongst the league's top 10 starting pitching in all of baseball.
You're also the same guy
in
that
all
loves
of
Zach
baseball.
Britton, so I don't really. You know what?
Their bullpen is their weakness. That's what they need to clean up, and that's what they'll clean up.
Snug says, I'm not sure anyone would give Correa $300 million. If he gets $250 million, he would have done well. Nathan says, let's go Yankees. I think the Yankees should sign Freddie Freeman and Carlos Rodon for pitching. Carlos Rodon has been linked to the Yankees.
He has been.
He wouldn't fit New York.
Why? You know that?
He's a left-handed southpaw that
what?
doesn't throw
Lefties
very
fit
hard.
New
He's going to
York.
be a You know
Lefties
what?
filling
Sign him. And when he gives up 30 home runs and you go, oh, I wish I would have saw that coming, I'll say I would have told you.
There's a lot of pitchers that said they didn't fit with the Yankees and have fit with and a lot of pitchers that did that everybody thought was going to fit with the Yankees didn't. So there's a lot of them. I can right. There's a bunch of people. Right. There's a bunch of people that didn't fit with the Yankees. Vasquez didn't fit with the Yankees.
Both times.
I mean, but there were other pitchers that did fit with the Yankees that nobody thought were going to fit with the Yankees. So I don't think it's starting pitching that the Yankees have to worry about. I think the main concern with the Yankees is what the bullpen is going to be starting in the new year after this strike and this lockout is over, with all these relief pitchers that are going to be available, and there's still a ton of them available. And I expect Brian Cashman, this team probably has all these contracts already. I mean, obviously you can't talk to these players right now because it's locked out and it's against, league, tampering rules that they have.
No, because that doesn't get broke every day.
I believe once this lockout is over, you'll hear that the Yankees have this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. They're going to bring in relief pitching because they need to clean up whatever this bullpen is moving forward. I don't know what they're doing with Zach Britton. I did hear that the Yankees were thinking about moving Zach Britton.
Oh, thank God, please.
But Chapman will be back for his last year. I expect it. I mean, that's what I've been hearing. Loizaga was fantastic last year. Chad Green is available. I do believe the Yankees will re-sign him. I think they'll extend him. The problem with Chad Green is they wear him out. He wears out, too much. They don't know where, at certain games, they'll put him in the 5th inning, then they'll put him in the 7th inning, they'll put him in the 9th inning. I think Chad Green needs to have a position where he fits and he stays at that position.
And that's where the lack of depth, I think, hurt them at certain points, too, because they had to use Chad Green in so many different roles.
So, and I do believe the Yankees will land 2 or 3 relief pitchers in free agency that will fit where they are. I don't know if they'll trade for one, aka Haddon, whatever his name is, Hader over there with the Mill. I don't know what the Yankees are planning to do when this.
God help you if you bring back Adam Ottavino.
What?
God help us if they bring back
Adam Ottavino. They're not bringing him back. I've never. First of all, the Red Sox aren't. Didn't the Red Sox give him an extension?
No, he's a free agent right now.
Yeah, they're not bringing it back out.
He's 36 years old.
They're not bringing it back.
Trevor Rosenthal, Brad Hand, Dylan Betances, Yuri Familia, Joe Kelly, Chris Martin, Alex Colome, Archie Bradley. Yeah, there's a good variety.
There's a lot.
Oh, your guy, Greg Holland, still available too.
There's a lot. There's a lot of guys that and listen, Nathan keeps saying Luis Severino in the they're not keeping Luis Severino in the bullpen. There's no way they're doing that. Severino will play. He'll be their second guy. They'll have their second. Luis Severino will be their second guy. As far as their rotation is concerned, they're not moving him back into the bullpen. He's been pitching this offseason. I've been reading a lot of good things with Luis Severino so far since the lockout. There was a story that a kid wrote that follows the Yankees. He's a big Yankee fan, and he says that Luis Severino is back. He's throwing 98, 97 right now. So I expect Luis Severino to come back strong, right behind Garrett Cole, being that he has the whole offseason to throw.
Either way, Nathan, it's not a formality league anymore. Pitchers can be both, so they might use him in both roles.
Yeah, but he's going to be a starter.
He's going to be a starter most of the season. I think, like I said last year, what they did at the end of the season when he came back is they were trying to ease him into the game.
That's why they put him in the bullpen.
They put him in the bullpen, but also to prepare him for the playoffs too, because he wasn't good as a starter in the playoffs. So maybe they were trying to think.
Was it coming back from a big injury?
No. I mean, in general, like his whole Yankee career, he's been pretty bad in the playoffs for the most part. So
that's not why they put him in the bullpen. They put him in the bullpen because he came off 2 major surgeries and he barely played all season long. Came back with the last 15, 20 games of the season. You think they're going to start him in the rotation? That's stupid. That's not smart. It has nothing to do what he's done in the playoffs. That has everything to do with his injuries. And the Yankees didn't want to put him in harm's way. That's the facts, okay? And they have the kid who looked really, really good last year, Gil, who was fantastic last year in their rotation. He's a big prospect for the Yankees. I expect him to take leaps going into this season as well. He'll be their 4th or 5th guy. And what's his name? Get a lefty who had a fantastic year this year too. Who's the lefty who came back from torn UCL?
Oh,
Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery, who looked really good this year. He really did. He was the best pitcher. He was the best pitcher in the second half of the season for the Yankees. So he'll be their 3rd guy. So I do believe the Yankees might bring a veteran starting pitcher, but I expect the Yankees this offseason, when this lockout is over, to solidify whatever this bullpen is moving forward. They need to bring in bullpen help. It is definitely a concern this year. It's been the concern. This was the best bullpen. Taylor is coming back. They have Taylor coming back. The Yankees, you never have enough depth in your rotation. You never. And the Yankees got like 6, 7 guys in their rotation right now. I expect the Yankees to bring in another veteran guy. If there's a guy, they'll trade for the kid from Cincinnati, which everybody believes that the Yankees are still in the works of probably doing. But I still think that the Yankees are planning to bring in relief pitching. It's definitely a weakness. And I expect one of these guys, either Correa, Freeman, somebody they're going to bring in of name. I don't know who they're. Carlos Rondon. Listen, if they bring Carlos Rondon in, they only bring Carlos Rondon as an add-on. Matthew Boyd, No, they're not bringing.
He'll be a depth piece if they do get him. He's still on the younger side, but he's not going to get more than a 3-year deal.
They're not.
Don't be surprised if it's Kershaw. And I'm not saying that because he's not gonna demand a lot of money. It's gonna be the name. The Yankees
I
like
think he'll go
names.
back to the Dodgers.
It probably will.
Yeah, he
but
probably
don't-
is.
He probably
They'll
is.
bring
I'd
it-
put money on him going back to the Dodgers.
They'll bring in a veteran pitcher a name that they can revive this year for this rotation. But I think it's more unlikely the Yankees are going to go with relief pitching and a big name. If Freeman somehow falls out of whack with the Braves, I think Freeman, the best chance for Freeman to go anywhere is the Yankees. So
Here's another one that's a little more under the radar, but he's younger and doesn't have a lot of mileage on his arm. Is Yusei Kikuchi too? 30 years old. He pitched well last year for Seattle. That could be a name they could look at as well.
You know what's crazy? I think the Mets are more linked to him than the Yankees are.
I've heard that too.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mets don't. I don't know if the Mets necessarily would need him as much, but because the Mets need a lot of bullpen help too.
And their rotation, the Mets rotation, besides Max Scherzer and what's his name again, DeGrom are the only real guys that you can count on. The other guys, the 3, 4, 5, 6, the Mets starting rotation is not good. It really isn't. So you can sit there. Yeah, they have 2 fantastic pitchers, no question. They pitch every 5th day.
Well, yeah.
They got the other guys. Walker, you're going to trust Walker? In the second half of the season was horrible. I mean, they got nobody in their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th row.
Too.
No, Walker's
he's still there. He's still there. They got Tyler McGill, who was good in the month of July and August. Then he fell off.
And you're going to trust him? Yeah.
David Peterson is the guy that
let's trust him.
Hoping they could bounce back because he did well in the lockout shortened season, but then struggled last year too.
Let's trust him.
So they're going to have to trust to make that kind of thing work. Hopefully Buck Showalter can put something together with that. But the Mets could definitely go after another one of those guys too. Kikuchi Boyd is 31.
The Mets are not bringing in any more big name guys. They're not spending. They just gave Max Scherzer the biggest contract, the biggest pitching contract in baseball history. I don't know what Met fans think that this guy's going to do. He spent $750 million in 2 years. Okay. He's not going to be going on a spree where he's going to be bringing in this guy, that guy, this guy. He already brought in the big names. The next other guys that they're going to bring in are maybe relief pitchers,
veteran starters that aren't going to be
not
costly.
anything big. And I'm telling you right now, this rotation, as good as Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom is, and they can win every time they get on the mound. It's not going to make a difference if the other guys are.
If the Mets actually give DeGrom run support, that would be helpful.
No, they will. Listen, the Mets. I don't expect their shortstop Lindor is going to have the season he had last year. I think he'll be better this year. I do. I think this lineup it will be better. I don't know how much better, but they'll be better. McNeil is better than he was last year. Okay,
one can only hope.
He's definitely better. He might
not even play full time either now, though.
They might trade him. I don't know, but McNeil he's a better hitter than he was. And Nimmo, who had a really good year last year, he's not even going to be starting center fielder, and he's not happy with that.
Well, yeah, they're going to platoon a lot based on the fact that they have a lot of specialist type guys. Dominic Smith's another specialist type guy. They still got JD Davis there. They're probably going to move one of them, but McNeil's kind of in that realm too now, getting Eduardo Escobar too. And then there's also the factor of Brett Beatty, who's a top third base prospect. He might come up this year too. They were thinking he was ready last year, but I don't think they brought him up because of
I remember when they drafted him.
Yep. And
that was a Van Wagenen.
Yes. And he fell later than expected to the Mets. Kind of like freaking Kumar Rocker, but then he didn't sign with the team. But nevertheless, he's
another joke when the Met fans heard. Oh,
nevertheless,
I heard all the Met fans so happy when Rocker was. They got Rocker, and then all of a sudden he falls out. I remember Jeff post something up. He says, "Oh, what happened to Rocker?" I remember Josh. He was like so excited, and then Rocker winds up not even being with not even staying with the team because he can't even. His arm is completely dead.
Yeah. So even so, if Beatty comes up this year, I don't know if he'll come up at the start of the season, especially if it's a shortened season, but they'll probably have him come up at some point. So then McNeil becomes potentially, depending on how he plays, a trade deadline chip or a versatile bench player.
It's going to be interesting. It really is. But then the lockout is over. I expect the Yankees to make some significant moves. I do believe one big name out of the bunch that we still hear that are still available. One of them are going to go to the Yankees. I believe. I believe that. As far as the rotation, I don't see the Yankees making drastic moves at the rotation unless they go after the kid from Cincinnati. That's it. I don't see anything else out there that really stands out for the Yankees and say, oh, let's get this guy. I don't see it. As far as the rotation, the relief pitching, I expect the Yankees to jump on 2 or 3 of these guys that are available in free agency. That's what I think.
According to Spotrax, Carlos Rodon's market value, Nathan, just to put it in perspective, is about 24.08 million.
What, a year?
Yeah, per year is what they're thinking. He had a great year last year. He was a Cy Young candidate before he got hurt. So yeah, he's going to get a lot. So again, we'll have to see if the Yankees are the team that gives him that.
If they bring him in, they're not going to go. If they bring in Rendon, they're not going to go after any trades or anything like that.
Yeah,
and I don't see Correa or Freeman because
right.
The Yankees going to pay a pitcher that much money when he's demanding $25 million a year.
Right.
What
and the Reds are not going. The Reds are not going to want to trade Castillo for just a rental type scenario, unless it's later in the season. Like if the lockout does extend, where the season
one of those
starts
shorts, they're going to want one of those shortstops, Pereza or Volpe, and somebody else to get that done.
I'm not sure about that.
But that's what they're going to want. They're going to want one of their top shortstops.
No, because they got their kid. What's the?
Well, they can move Pereza at second base or Volpe at second base. So
India's third base.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're thinking?
Well,
Senzel, yeah, but Senzel could also do outfield too. So
the fact is that you could get a top prospect from the Yankees at that market price. They'll do it. I mean, he's a good. Both of those guys are going to be great players. They're saying Pereza, he's a little bit. They don't want to rush Volpe. Pereza might be up before Volpe this year. Okay, that's what they're saying because they don't want to rush Volpe up because they believe in this kid and they believe this kid's going to be a star. Perez is he's an absolute gunslinger and he's a great defensive player and he's definitely improved offensively at his position. So everybody believes that both guys could be starters in the league.
Nathan says, do you think the Yankees have deals in place for Freeman and Correa? Not right now.
No, they're not getting both of them.
They're not right.
They're not getting both of them.
Up to the players to end the lockout, and the Yankees will have 3 Luis in the rotation if they make that trade. Yes, they would.
Yes, but I
unless Gil goes in the trade, though, so he could.
Yeah, they better not do that. They better not do that because Gil is there. He's been very impressive last year. He was very impressive for the Yankees. He looked as good as that what people were saying as a prospect he was, and he's only going to get better. He could eventually turn out to be an ace for the Yankees. Why would they trade him? It would be stupid. If the Yankees trade Gil, it's a dumb move by the organization. I can't see it. What was his record last year? Was he 9-3?
Yeah, he won his first 5 starts. He had a little bit of a slump, I think, in August, like late August, and then he bounced back kind of in their playoff stretch run.
Yeah, and they put him in the. They didn't put him in the rotation. They put him in.
They were trying to limit his innings, I think, for the playoffs too, because they were prepping him for that kind of versatile role because they knew Severino was coming back. They didn't want to throw him in right away to, I guess, that kind of role for a playoff scenario. Now that's pretty random. It could work. An unknown pitcher, because usually a rookie pitcher gets the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time because you don't have tape on them where you don't know what their tendencies of what they're going to throw and stuff like that.
I'm trying to look at. He played 6 games last year. A 3.07 ERA. I'm just trying to look at his numbers. His WHIP. I don't see his WHIP. His WHIP was 1.33. It's pretty good for a young kid.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be good. We'll see how he translates into this year. And obviously, teams have seen him 6 games this year. Let's see how he plays. His WAR is pretty good too, 0.8.
Yeah, that's pretty good for a back end of the rotation pitcher. Only main concern maybe is a little bit with the walk to strikeout ratio, 38-19, but that could get better over time. So
yeah, he's a young player. He's 21. What is he? 21 years old or something like that? 23. He's a 23-year-old Dominican. So listen, I don't see the Yankees trading him. I'll tell you that right now. It'd be stupid. I mean, they have a young pitcher that could be a future second guy or third guy, maybe even first guy in a rotation. Why would they do that? So I don't see them doing it. He has to develop a third pitch. That's something that he needs to do. He's got two really good pitches. I think his changeup and his fastball. That's
Right.
what he's got.
Yeah, he's got some wild, weird curveball. I think it's a slurve or something like that.
Yeah.
That isn't as fully developed yet, but did get some strikeouts. But yeah, still was the
He needs
basis
to
for a
create-
lot of his.
He needs to
walks,
develop
too.
that third pitch. If he does that, he's going to be a dangerous pitcher. He's really good. He's got a good changeup. He's got a good fastball. His fastball is pretty good. I think he has a 2-seam and a 4-seam. But
Oh, that's good if that's the
yeah,
case.
I
too,
think he
yeah.
has a 2-seam and a 4-seam. But I'm talking about that third dominant pitch.
Yeah,
that
the
doesn't have
breaking
that.
pitch
Yes.
that is going to make it change direction. Change
doesn't have
speed,
one.
because a lot of times young pitchers are just going to overthrow it a lot of the time too, where they're just relying on velocity. But if he already has the changeup and can change speeds like that, you get a breaking ball that's maybe a hard slider or a hard curveball to go along with that, and then a softer one that could be more like a 78 mile an hour or 75, something to change speeds like that to go along with the hard stuff.
Well, we'll see. I mean, ERA and WHIP are the things that you look at, not the wins. I mean,
Right.
That's what they're projected of 2022, which they never ever right. 3.84, WHIP 1.267. So that's what they're projecting.
So all right, so they expect the ERA to go up in a larger sample, I guess, is what they're judging. Plus, again, with the strengths of that division too, it could be hard in the full year.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know if the Red Sox will necessarily be as good as they were last year either.
We'll see.
Because they're always a fluky team.
They got two really good young players they're bringing in.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so their first baseman that they're probably bringing up this year. I think the Red Sox will be good. That division's going to be good, and I know that Baltimore was looking to trade their center fielder.
Yes,
Mullins.
Yep.
Yeah,
Please,
which
no.
well, the Yankees aren't interested in him anymore. They were. They're not interested in him now. But there'll be teams like the Red Sox. I know that.
He's not going to
Japanese kid is still available. That nobody brought him in before the strike. I expect him to be signed by the Red Sox. I mean, they were the lead team to get him. What's his name again?
Suzuki.
Suzuki.
Forget his first name. Yeah.
They were the team that were going to get him. So I expect the Red Sox to still land him.
Yeah, I don't know how much his market might diminish too, just because of how
I don't think so.
Because of how this lockout might affect.
He's going to get 160 million
unless he does play in Japan in their season first. If
the Red Sox
does
are
extend
pay him.
them,
the Red Sox are going to pay him. I guarantee you, the Red Sox are going to pay him. I don't know how much money they have, but they're going to pay him.
Snug says he's
I don't
got
know
that
about
cupcake.
160 million, but
Snug says
100 million.
He's got that cupcake curveball so sweet you can't chase it enough. And JBJ is back in center field. Yes, they swapped Renfroe to the Brewers for getting Jackie Bradley back.
Yeah, which is good. I think Jackie Bradley was a good Red Sox. So I don't know. I thought that the Mets were going to get him. I really thought that Jackie Bradley was going.
Yeah,
to the Mets.
They were rumored for a lot of different center fielders before they ended up going for. Well,
no,
they
got the better one
before they got Marte.
They got the better one. Marte is fantastic. Honestly, out of all the moves that the Mets made this offseason, Marte was the best one. I think Marte is going to fit great. He steals 50, 60 bases.
Mark Canha is going to be a name that fans enjoy too.
I like him a lot, so yeah.
That's going to be a great defensive outfield. Nemo, him, and Marte run around.
I think Marte was the guy. We'll see. We'll see how these guys play in New York because when you come to New York,
Robbie Cano's there to lead them.
Oh yeah, exactly what you need. Oh, here's some illegal drug you could take now.
I mean, oh God, Robbie, he would have been. He would have went down as the greatest second baseman ever play. It just ruined his whole career. It really did. Horrible. It's a horrible story. Fantastic hitter. But the 8 years, 7 years when he was the Yankees, he was fantastic.
Yeah, he was power second baseman before that was a thing. So him and Jeff Kent were really the only ones for what, a decade of baseball.
Well, Soriano was good too.
Yeah, but he kind of fell off once he got to the Washington and then with the Cubs too.
He had 400 home runs.
No, I know that. I know that. His peak years were phenomenal.
His peak years were in left field.
I know his peak years were with the Yankees.
His peak years with the Yankees,
and then second base.
And then he had one great year with the Nationals too. But then
he had 40 and 40 with the Yankees twice, I think.
Right.
His years in Chicago are pretty damn good.
They're pretty
some
good
of them,
with the
but
Yankees.
not for the some of them, but not for the contract that he ended up signing with the Cubs.
His years with the Yankees were pretty damn good. Alfonso Soriano. I mean, the Yankees. Honestly, I think the Yankees.
He wasn't a Yankee as long as you think he was.
He was a Yankee a while.
They trade him for
1999 to 2003.
Almost 6 years.
Yeah, he had one near 40-40 season. 2002 is the year we're referring to. Had 209 hits that year. Led the league in runs scored, led the league in stolen
34,
bases.
51, 36. I mean, I'm trying to look at his number. 39, 38, 28. Right? I'm trying to figure.
39 home runs, 102, 38.
41 stolen bases, 38, 35. I mean,
Washington, he had 140-40 season. That was the only one in his career. In 2006,
his best years were probably with Texas. I mean, the 2 years that he was with Texas were fantastic. He really was. And,
36, 104, hit 268.
46.
The 1 year at the Yankees, though, was his only 300 hitting season, though.
Yeah.
With the 39 home runs and 41 stolen bases. That probably was his best year.
That was
led the league in run scores.
That was
2002 with the Yankees.
I mean, he had a great career. I mean, if you look at 412 home runs, I mean, if Alfonso got over 500 home runs, he's a Hall of Famer. He really is. I mean, he lied about his age, too. Alfonso Soriano.
Did he?
Yeah, that was the story. When he came to the Yankees, supposedly he was 3 years older than he was, what he claimed he was. When he came into the league, I think he claimed he was like 21 when he was 24 or something like that. Something like that. So, I mean, he could have played longer, but hey, listen, Alfonso Soriano had a fantastic career. He really did. I mean, did you see how big he got? Did anybody see the pictures how big Alfonso Soriano got? He's muscular, man. He's built like a rock. Fantastic. Do you want to get into this Michigan situation?
Sure.
I mean, did you see what happened? Did everybody see what happened with Michigan? I mean, the Wolverines.
Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard. Sorry.
Listen, Carl texted me when this was going on. He says, "Did you see what Juwan Howard did?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Go check out the video of Juwan Howard getting into a fist fight on the sidelines." And I see, I watched the replay on YouTube, and I watched how it escalated. You heard what Juwan Howard was saying. Gets into a pushing, shoving contest, and all of a sudden, Juwan starts to throw punches in a group and here's the thing, and I'm going to say this as somebody that wants to teach and wants to work with young kids and teach young kids how to play the game. You are a basketball coach. You're making a lot of money. You played in the Final Four last year, right? It was
almost. They lost to UCLA.
The Elite Eight. You went into the Elite Eight last year.
No, but you're right. He wasn't in the Final Four. I think he was in the national championship
as a player.
Right.
Yeah.
You earned your respect your first year to take your team to the Elite Eight. You had practically your whole recruiting class back this year. You were one of the favorites to winning the whole thing, the whole national championship this year. And the last 5-6 games of the Michigan Wolverines, they have laid up lousy goose eggs. This team playing teams that they should beat. They should beat some of the teams that they've played. They've been embarrassed by quite a few teams that they should have won. Now, understand that you get frustrated as a coach on the sidelines. Understand that the players that are not playing at the top of their game, they're not healthy. They have 4 or 5 injuries. The lineup's not in not in question. Whatever it is, to go on the sidelines and throw punches at another coach, not only is it an embarrassment, it embarrassed your school, it embarrassed your community, it embarrassed your players, it embarrassed everything. How could your players trust that when something goes sour in a March Madness game and your team is down by 20 points in the first half of the game, in the second half, you're going to be able to calm your team down, coach your team, come back and win that game after what you saw over the weekend? That not only was an embarrassment to the school, it was embarrassing to Juwan Howard, who was very well respected, not only in college basketball, but throughout the NBA. You look at Juwan Howard's career. Juwan Howard had a very good career in the NBA. He was a good player for like 10 plus years before he became a bench player. He was a good player. And then you see him starting to throw punches with an assistant coach, right? It was the assistant
It
coach.
was the Wisconsin, I think, quality control coach or something like
An
that.
assistant coach because he said something on the sidelines that upsetted you. I mean, what could somebody say to you? You're making millions and millions of dollars.
Well, let's not go there because I'm sure there's a few words he could have been called that would have triggered a punch.
He didn't say anything racist.
I'm not saying racist.
Nothing came out that anything was said racism. Nothing. It was pretty much, back and forth banter. What most coaches would say on the bench, that you stink. You're a terrible coach. Your team stinks. Go F yourself. That kind of stuff. And then you throw punches at him. You're a 6'10", 240, 230 pound, ex-basketball player, and you're trying to teach your kids from right and wrong, and you're throwing punches. I mean, it's an embarrassment. And here's the thing. The NCAA, with these suspensions, I saw the Wolverines suspended Juwan Howard, which I think it's a joke, okay? Yes, he's not getting paid for the games that he's missing. He's still making millions of dollars. If they get into March Madness, the coaches get a boost. He's going to make all that money back.
Right now, according to Joe Lunardi's bracketology, they are one of the last 4 teams in.
They're getting it.
So they would be probably one of those play-in 11 seats.
They're getting it. And they're going to be a hard out. I'm telling you, nobody's going to want to play Michigan in any of those games because they're a good team and they can get hot. They're good. They're good. They can get healthy and hot, and they're going to be very hard to beat. So, I mean, so you sit back and you say, what should the NCAA do with these coaches that they're doing these things? This is the first time we've seen this before. If it's not the players, these coaches should be controlled on the sidelines. So here's what I have thought. And if I put things together, if I was running the NCAA and I was on the board right now, coaches should not leave their seats more than a certain amount of times a game. You should have a certain amount of times that you can get up and during play. Obviously not when you're calling timeouts. You can stand up and talk to your players and do whatever the hell you're doing. But during the game, you should not be able to stand up a certain amount of times, because what it does is it stirs up whatever it is, not only with the crowds, it stirs up whatever you're saying that the other coaches can hear you moving back and forth on the sidelines. Something is being said, and it has been said on these sidelines that these coaches are saying and these other coaches are hearing. I think the NCAA needs to do something about that. If a coach throws a punch, automatically should be suspended 10 games. Not 1, not 2. They should be suspended for 10 games. That tells the coach, you stand up and you throw a punch, you better be ready for the consequences. How many college games are played before the March Madness? What is it, like 30?
It's about 28 to 30, depending on how the conference tournaments play.
So if you miss 10 games, you're missing almost more than a quarter of the season.
Right, and that would be the entire Big Ten tournament too. There's 5 more regular season games. That was what he was suspended for. And then however far they end up going in the Big Ten tournament, which right now they're 6th right now. They would be the 6th seed out of the 12 teams. Then how far they would go then would determine on probably 3 more games if they win it. So that would be 8 games. So then you end up with the first round of March Madness too in that case. And that would also determine where their seeding is too. Now, if they win the Big Ten, they're going to be a higher seed than what they are now.
And he's not going to miss 10 games.
He's already been suspended for 5.
Yes,
and
that's it.
Yeah, and it seems like the Big Ten maybe had some leeway into not pushing it where it's going to affect their tournament too. Now, the Big Ten tournament is still going to be tough anyway because Purdue's loaded. Michigan State's always very good. They got Ohio State, who
they're
going to
squeak in. The Wolverines are going to squeak into this March Madness, and they're not healthy. They're going to get healthy, and I'm telling you, nobody, if they're 11th or 12th seed, nobody's going to want to play them in the first round. I'm telling you right now, nobody's going to want to play Michigan in the first round, especially if they get healthy.
Yeah. So it's still going to be tough anyway, though, with the way the seeding works out for them to do it. But still, because they've been pesky in the past, as I mentioned, they've made the tournament as a play-in team a lot of the time. They've won tournament games as a play-in team. That would still justify the fact that they would eventually accumulate to the 10-game margin. So Juwan Howard, in those particular instances, are still being there is obviously going to supply the boost if he does end up coaching, because he was coach of the year last year in the entire NCAA, and he deserved it. He did a very good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he also did for a 1-year turnaround with a couple players lost, and also in the tournament too, with all the players they had injured. They made it all the way to the Elite Eight. They shouldn't have lost to UCLA the way they did. They only put up, I think, 49 points or something in that game, but still, it was an impressive run. They beat Florida State, a good team. LSU was a good team.
It's an embarrassment. It is an absolute embarrassment what the Wolverines and just suspending him 5 games to me is a joke. I mean, I guess it was a joke.
I guess
you're throwing full punches. Okay, you're throwing haymakers on the sidelines in front of your players, your kids. You're teaching these kids not to do this, and you're doing it. You're a grown man. You played in the NBA. You played college basketball. You were in the Final Four. You had a chance to win a national championship. And then last year, you took this team to an Elite Eight. You got all your players back. None of them really went into the NBA. You brought them all back. You were ready to win this year. And then you laid up the last 4 games. You're not playing good basketball. You're embarrassment. And I don't want to hear the injuries. When you have one of the best recruiting classes in the nation, okay? You had one of the best recruiting classes last year and one of the top 10 recruiting classes this year. You can't make that excuse sitting here today and telling me, well, they were in the Elite Eight last year. So what? They'll get into March Madness. It doesn't really matter. They did a great job. You are expected to win now. Now.
They were ranked top 5 at the start of the season, so they definitely had some kind of justification.
Keith Rooney says 5 games is ridiculous. 5 games, he should be suspended for 10 games. I don't know if you say 5 games is not enough, but
it's a little more. It should be, just because you have to penalize at least for the Big Ten tournament and make it harder for them.
You threw punches at another coach. You landed 2 of them. I think he landed 2 of them.
Yeah, he landed definitely one on the shoulder, and then he tried to swing another one and tried to hit his right shoulder or his head or something like that, and he just missed it or grazed it or something. Then Eli Brooks, one of their star guards, was also throwing punches too on one of the players too. Now the assistant coach, I think, got suspended as well for a couple of games.
Keith is saying at least 10. I agree.
Yeah. Errol was saying 10. I think definitely into the Big Ten tournament they should be, because 5 games is just the regular season. So no matter how badly you would end up finishing in the Big Ten, you're still going to be in the Big Ten tournament. It's not like a pro sports bracket that has a particular amount of wild cards. You're not eliminated. Everyone still gets a shot. Look at Georgetown last year, the run they had, fluky run to get in to win the Big East tournament. Yeah. And then they got blown out in the tournament.
Patrick Ewing, by the way, his college career as a head coach is really coming to an end. I mean,
he just extended him.
To me, they extended him for what? He's done nothing.
Yeah, his tenure was rough in the beginning.
They only extended it because of his name. His career is done. They're only extending because if, let's say, they fire him next year, he still has that contract. He doesn't have to get another job. He's still under contract with the George Washington Hoyas. So they extended him, yes, because of his name, not because of what he's done. I mean, he had a good last year. His recruiting class was pretty good.
It's not going to be as strong as the rest of the Big East, because it's tough, especially now with UConn back in there now too, and they're going to get a lot with the basketball reputation.
He's horrible. He's been horrible. Look at what they lost.
The biggest thing that hurt them the most was losing Mac McClung too, who individually was one of the best players in the Big East when he was there, and then he transfers over to Texas Tech. He becomes I don't know if he was their best player at Texas Tech every year, because they also had Culver in certain years. Kyler Edwards was a nice player too, but they had him fit in nicely on that team. And now Georgetown's kind of seeking that kind of thing. And again, I don't know if one fluky run is necessarily going to justify everything else he did as a coach, because Georgetown used to be a consistently good tournament team. Now, they were never a great offensive team. They had some good defensive teams, but they still had a consistently good program amidst all that. Keith said he should be suspended for the rest of the season. Georgetown and Georgetown is horrible.
They're horrible. They're a horrible basketball team. And I think the Hoyas obviously extended Patrick Ewing because of who he is. He's got Ryan Mutombo on the team too, Dikembe Mutombo's son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which He's no good.
The big man representative.
No, he's not. He's not that. I don't know how big. He's 6'2".
No, I'm just saying the
7'2".
influence.
Yeah, it's Mutombo's son, and I listen. And by the way, Dikembe Mutombo played for the Hoyas. But looking at this team and this roster, this team, when you look at the recruiting class the last 2 years, this team should be a top, Big East team, and they're just not.
6-20 this year. Let's see.
They're horrible. They're not making the tournament. And
they're 0-15 in Big East play this year.
I mean, and they extended Patrick Ewing. I'm sorry. Villanova won 2 national championships in the last 7-8 years. Okay, that you extend a coach. What has Patrick Ewing done for the Hoyas? How many Big East championships have they won?
Just the one last year that I can think of.
One Big East championship in 4 years as a head coach. Okay. And they haven't even done anything in the March Madness.
They didn't anyway. In their defense, in his defense, they didn't do it with their previous coaches either. They were always out in the first weekend.
I don't know what Patrick Ewing's making, but he must be making a pretty damn dollar on this.
Yeah, like Keith was saying, it's more of the namesake that might attract, I guess, more big men to come or something like that. I don't know.
He just says Mutombo's son. I mean,
right.
Who cares? I mean, Mutombo's son, is he an NBA player? Probably not. I mean, seriously, it's just horrible. It's horrible. I mean, Keith says, read what he's saying.
I agree. He's only there because of his name. And Georgetown's horrible. Yeah, we were just listing that off, Keith. Yeah, 0-15 at conference play. Granted, the Big East is very good, but still, that's horrible.
I just think with college bad, I can't wait until March Madness, which is about a week and a half, 2 weeks away. I can't wait for it. It's the best time of year. It really is. If you guys like to bet and obviously play the bracket, this is the best time for basketball. You go to a bar and you want to sit there and just chill out and eat food and just watch the games. There's especially the first 2 days.
Right.
The 2 days you're watching 16 games in every single day.
Right. They split up this first round of 64. They'll split it up 16 and 16.
I mean, you're watching great basketball throughout the day. It's so fun to watch, and you watch the game-winning shots. You watch the next future NBA players, really play back and forth great basketball. But honestly, this year, out of any of the years, there is not a foregone conclusion where, that team, everybody keeps talking about Gonzaga. Gonzaga never wins.
They never finish it.
They never win.
Now they actually have the recruiting, though, so it helps a little bit. But still, now that actually puts more pressure on them, too, to try to finish
Gonzaga,
it off.
I'm willing to bet anybody. You pull out your pads or your bets. Gonzaga is not winning this year. I don't care how good they are. What are they, undefeated right now?
Yeah. The one loss just to Alabama.
I'm sorry.
At the beginning of the season.
They have one loss. Gonzaga doesn't even make I don't think they make the Final Four. Okay? You could take that to the bank. You could bet on that.
Moneyline Mania, you're hearing this? Errol's making a bet.
Mm-hmm. There is no way Gonzaga makes the Final Four.
Snuck says, yep, I never schedule meetings for the first Thursday and Friday. Yes, it's always good to try to sneak around, even when I was in school, too, just try to sneak around to watch the games. Because they start early, too. They start at 12, and then they just go on all day.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's the best time of year.
But this year also, too, it's also interesting in terms of the conference discrepancy, too. Usually you think of the Big East and the ACC, and then it's the Big Ten. It's kind of the other way around this year, where you have the Pac-12 is kind of top heavy, but they have some powerhouses with UCLA, with USC.
Oh, I can't wait to watch UCLA play in this tournament.
Now, they're an interesting role reversal because they did so good as an underdog last year. Now they're going to have a little more pressure as the favorite. And
Keith will take that bet. He says Final Four. I will take that bet. All right, we'll make that bet. I'll bet you $20. I bet you $20 that Gonzaga Bulldogs don't make the Final Four.
Now, the other thing, too, which is interesting, is their conference actually has been a little better than previous years, too. But again, that also is going to put more pressure on them, too. It's going to be the same level until they can get over the hump because
they always choke.
Now, they've been steady in terms of not getting the early round upsets. They're steadily, I think, the last 6 years into the Sweet 16. But now taking that next step with all these top recruits now, they have to do better than that. And that'll be a big test for them this year if they do end up having to face some deeper teams. Because outside of the ACC and probably the Big 12, because the Big 12 is a little more top heavy.
ACC has been absolutely jumped
down this year. Down. Really, really down. the Big 12's been kind of top heavy. The Pac-12 has some good teams, but the SEC, the Big East, and the Big 10 are the three with the deepest
in college
pool.
in college basketball. I'm an ACC guy. Obviously, I'm a Duke fan. I follow the Blue Devils really since I was a kid. As everybody knows, I'm a Bobby Hurley fan. So Tyler, you're a Duke fan too. So, but this year, I know this is Coach K's last year. They haven't looked good. I mean, they're obviously
They're seventh, I think.
A madness team. They're what are they? Are they seventh?
They're number 7 in the nation, so they probably be as projected now a 2 seed.
I don't trust that this team is going to make it. I really don't, because they don't have the inside game that they used to have with the rebounding and stuff. They are a good shooting team. Duke is a very good shooting team.
Pontero and Griffin are both nice players.
Yes, they are. They're going to be top first-round draft picks in the NBA. But this year, they're not a good rebounding team. They're going to have a lot of problems with these big, strong teams that can out-rebound them. And there are a lot of great shooting teams. A lot of great shooting teams going in this tournament. And so if you can't out-rebound these teams that are shooting just as well as you are, you're not going to win.
Keith says he's a UNC fan, buddy. And yes, the ACC is down.
I know he's a UNC fan. I trust me, I know.
Sluck says, certainly Duke is Duke. They are on TV more than Leave It to Beaver reruns.
That's true. Well, we should ask the Beav that.
Yes, that's his area expertise. Or
By the
Sluck
way-
likes to call him the Sultan of Coleslaw.
By the way, as everybody sees, I'm wearing this stupid underwear on the top of my head. I lost a bet. I'm wearing.
I got 17 minutes.
I'm wearing Speedy's old underwear on my head for this show. So for 3 hours, I've been contending with trying to keep my hair under this underwear and tight around my head, which is squeezing the hell out of my head. But
Yes,
horrible.
Yes, Keith also, he says the SEC is very good. They have been.
Yeah,
they have been very good this year. Kentucky.
Watch out for Alabama, man.
Alabama, Kentucky, LSU is a sleeper too. They had a little bit of a down stretch in the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, but they're playing well now. Auburn's been ranked number 2 for quite a while. They had a 1 week ranked as number 1. They're going to be tough. They just made the Final Four 3 years ago too. A lot of people forget about that they should have beaten Virginia.
Alabama's going to be one of my Final Four teams. I think Alabama's dangerous this year. They were dangerous last year. They got a lot of players coming. They had a lot of players coming back. I was very surprised they got knocked out the way they did last year.
Freaking free throws.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I expect them to be even more dangerous going into this tournament this year, and I expect them to go far. I really do. I think they're going to compete, and they're a good rebounding and shooting team. So a lot of length, especially at the guard position.
Now, Tennessee's another interesting one, too, in the SEC, Keith, to add on to your point. The only problem with them is Rick Barnes has never been a good tournament coach. So can they turn that kind of thing around, too?
Yeah.
Now, then again, we thought that with certain teams, too, with like look at Baylor, the way they turned around last year and they won a national championship because they were always a bad playoff team, too. Same thing with a team like Virginia that won their national championship after getting upset by a 16 seed. But it made it all worth it.
Tyler, are you a big college fan? Do you follow college basketball?
No, it's ironic that you mentioned that because I wasn't ignoring you guys. I was trying to figure out because Stony Brook had a really good.
They're not making
2015.
No, they're not.
2015,
No,
I think, was
but-
their tournament year.
Yes, no, but there was a player, and I know he transferred from Stony Brook, and I know he went out west. I don't know why I thought he went to UCLA. He went to Cal, not UCLA. But I was trying to figure out where he went.
Yeah, Cal hasn't been good with basketball since 2016.
No, but Mikhail Foreman could have went anywhere. And honestly, had he stayed
Right.
at Stony Brook, he was freaking good, man.
No, Stony Brook's had a lot of good players that came out and played good college basketball. Never really got over the hump to make the NBA. But I think when you look at this tournament, this is the first year that there is no predominant team that stands out to me that says that team's winning the national championship or they're definitely going to be there. Because as good as Gonzaga is and how dominant they've been this year,
You can't trust the team.
I don't trust them. I don't trust them.
They got to come out of the Big Four.
They're a big team that can shoot. Here's the problem. When they fall behind, Gonzaga has a problem, competing. When they're 10 points behind another team, they play catch up. They're always playing catch up throughout that game, and they can never really get that lead. And they play. That to me, when you're watching the tournament, you see that it's back and forth. You're up 5, you're down 5. You're up 5, you're down 5. You're up 10, you're down 10. I don't know if Gonzaga this year is a team that could play catch up where I trust them. Where if they fall behind against a really good team or a team. Later, and I don't think it's going to be early, but I think in the 3rd or 4th round before like the Sweet 16, I could see Gonzaga getting knocked out in the Sweet 16.
Now, they've been steady in terms of not getting knocked out before then, but in the Sweet 16 is when they could get to those tougher 4 or 5 seeds, which I think this year looks like it could kind of be this kind of year with the way the SEC is and the Big Ten. Keith says, I like the Alabama call. Snook says, I have it on good authority that Alabama basketball will now and forever be as good as Alabama football.
No.
Keith says Kentucky. Yes, Kentucky's going to be very good too. They got a lot of
Gonzaga
size.
has 2 losses.
Oh, they do have 2 losses. Okay. Let's see. Oh, they lost to Duke as well. Okay, I didn't realize that. So they lost to Duke and they lost to Alabama, both at the beginning of the season. They did beat UCLA.
And UNC, by the way, UNC has played well this year at certain parts of the season. They looked horrible against Duke early in the season. They looked bad. And obviously they've gotten better. And UNC is definitely a tournament team. They're making the tournament.
Right now projected at 10.
Yes, they're making the tournament. But I just there is something about the ACC this year that just doesn't scare me. I like I said, the only consistent ACC team back and forth this year has been Duke.
Right.
I mean, being that they're a 7th seed, but I don't trust Duke because, again, I'm a Duke fan. I've watched a couple of games this year. They're not the rebounding team year in and year out they've been. And I'm telling you, when they play these big teams, if they have to play Purdue or somebody like
they're
that,
going to have trouble with Purdue.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
they're huge.
They're not going to be able to compete with them because Purdue, they can shoot and they can rebound, and they have there's a very good chance they could fall in the bracket with Purdue.
Yeah, if it could be a 2-3 matchup potentially down the road if that ends up coming to that, or 1-4.
Right now, I'm picking Villanova.
Yeah, they're always a good bet because they're getting a lot of players back from last year too. There were another team like Michigan that had all those injuries right at the end of the season. Keith says last year the ACC was weak too. Yeah, but they still had the difference is they still had some top teams. Virginia was still a 4 seed. Florida State was still a 4 seed. They still had a good realm. This year, Duke is really the only thing that's going to be probably a top 5 in terms of just the whole bracket tournament seed. Miami's good,
Which is crazy to sound because the
like
ACC's
Miami's
always been the best.
Yeah, they always have been. Miami's good in comparison to where they usually are, but they've fallen apart kind of in the middle of the season. North Carolina's still a tournament team, but not great. Virginia's kind of on that borderline where it's going to be hard for them to do because they're 17-10 right now. So they have a lot. There's a lot of different options, and Duke being the only real threat of the conference play. Now, in the conference tournament, that can obviously change because if other teams do well, then you're going to change the seedings around. But still,
I like Baylor too this year. I like Baylor too. This is another year that Baylor is dangerous. Again, very good shooting team. Baylor is as dangerous as any team. And you know what's been very surprising this year? Texas Tech. They've been very good.
They're actually one of my big threats, Texas Tech, because they're very, even without Chris Beard, the coach they brought in has been very well coached. They got a good system, and they really kept it together going, I guess, hiring in-house.
I know you guys said Villanova. I don't trust Villanova this year. They've always been a good defensive team. They're also playing in a division where they're the best. They're always the best. So being that they're 21-6 right now, they're 14-3 in the Big East. That's not crazy to argue about it. I mean, the Big East is better this year than they've been over the last couple of years. But how much better is the Big East? I mean, Providence is good, and Villanova. Besides that, who's good?
UConn's been good this year. Creighton's still up there as
you like UConn this year?
They're better. They're 21. They've been consistently ranked all season, and they have a lot of good scoring, good depth off the bench too. Another good shooting.
I think
team.
they get eliminated early.
They might. It depends on how the seeding goes with that because UConn doesn't have as much of because they just re-entered the Big East. They didn't get as much of the tougher non-conference competition. However, though, they did beat Auburn at the beginning of the season, though, who's right now number 2. So they at least made the most of it, and that's good. That's what gives them an edge when it comes to battle testing. Now, Danny Hurley as a coach, we'll see how he is in the tournament. He wasn't great with Arizona State, but in terms of the talent on that team, is definitely good, and it's a quick turnaround from what they were having to deal with what happened with Kevin Ollie. And now a story coming out with Kevin Ollie being like it was wrongfully fired or something like that from
racism.
UConn. Yeah, no, it was something with the scandal that he was inducted for turned out to be false. With so I think I forget the player's name off the top of my head, but
it's stolen computer or something like that.
It turned out to be false, that he should have never been forced out.
Why is it with UConn with these stories? every other year, there's a story that comes out that there's stolen things, players' stupidity on and off the court. I mean, This isn't the first time we've heard this before that with UConn. Why is it that this stuff happens over there? And obviously Calhoun is not there anymore, but Ali was Calhoun's predecessor, whatever that is predecessor. And now all of a sudden they bring in. Listen, Hurley is nice. Danny Hurley is a good coach. He's not Bobby. Okay, let's be honest. Bobby has been very successful where he has gone as a head coach, and obviously everybody knows about his father. Danny Hurley has not been good in the tournament. He's never been good in the tournament. And he takes over UConn, a team that has been obviously a good tournament team. Right? I mean,
they're always a tough out. Too,
a very good recruiting team. I don't trust. I don't trust UConn this year. I think UConn gets eliminated pretty early when they make this tournament.
Keith says the more you guys talk, there are more at least 10 teams that could win. What do you think? UConn just beat Villanova. I don't know if they're ready for a winning a national championship.
Villanova's not winning this year.
Villanova, I would say, is one of the 10. I would not.
You think Villanova has a chance to win this year?
Yeah, I do, because I think they still have a good core together. A lot of seniors, very well coached with Jay Wright. I would not call them the favorite, but I definitely would put them in the realm depending on where the bracket ends up falling. If I were to pick a favorite right now, I'd probably say either Auburn or Kentucky. But in terms of being one of the 10, yeah, I'd put them there.
I want Duke to win. I mean, I'm a Duke fan. I want to see them win.
I can see that. I can still see it kind of like a special run type thing.
I would love to see Coach K. Well, I mean, the record shows that they're still a good team,
right?
But I just think they have flaws in their rebounding. I think that if they wind up playing and they match up against Arizona or Purdue, these teams, they're and Kentucky.
Yeah.
These are rebounding teams that are going to give them problems.
Kentucky and Purdue would be the two biggest nightmares from that, because Kentucky has arguably the best big man in the nation, definitely in the SEC, which should be way.
And I think that's the problem with Duke. I don't think they're the rebounding team they were over the last couple of years with the big man with Williams and all the different people that they've had. Okafor. I mean, this is not that Duke team that you could say, hey, this is a good rebounding team. They're a good shooting team, and when they get hot, they're very hard to beat. Duke can, I've seen them shoot like where they hit 8 or 9 3-pointers in a row, but then I've also seen them where they go up and down the court and they can't hit a shot and they can't out rebound. They get in their own way. So, and you're going to say, well, look at their record. They've only lost 4 games this year. That's great. The games that they lost, it really showed that they lost. And the games that they won, they didn't win by much. So
Stark says, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Ali is going to get paid. I believe that too.
Kansas is very good.
Kansas is good too. Keith says that's true about UConn. UConn isn't that good, but they've made a lot of progress. Stark says, I love Jay Wright. He totally looks like a Batman villain. Yeah, Keith, that's kind of what I'm thinking. They're not going to be a championship team this year. They might make a Sweet 16, but I don't see them going much further than that because they're still very young, but they are very deep though too. Another team that shoots very well. And then they played tough against good competition too, where that'll help them be battle tested come tournament time. It's just, again, a difference of a different coach now too, which is the same problem certain other teams have. I was saying Texas Tech was being good, but they also have a new coach too. So what are you going to do with that? So it'll be an interesting kind of thing because newer coaches are starting to reemerge as teams that make the Final Four now. Look at last year. Scott Drew never made a Final Four. Mick Cronin was always choked. He was the king of choky at Cincinnati when they were in with the Bearcats when he was there. All of a sudden he goes to UCLA. They're a Final Four team now. Gonzaga, I mean, I guess they're Gonzaga. And then Houston, another team that was always choke prone too. So it might be some new ways for these new coaches though too. So I wouldn't trust the inexperience as being negative.
It is going to be very interesting.
Boxers made me sick.
What, the boxers?
Well, then they made me sick.
Why did they make you sick? They weren't on your head.
I don't know.
They weren't sitting on your forehead. I mean, they should be. I mean, block the yarmulke of that hole in your head. How is your hair doing over there? I want to. Can we do that? Let's make a bet because you haven't worn that dress that you lost. I mean, for years.
I said wear a dress, and I was buying a dress.
Well, we need to get you. Like, if I bought Rogaine for men, do you think we could do that on the show? I can get some Rogaine.
No,
why not?
I don't understand why I would want to grow hair back just to lose it again.
Well, what's wrong with having Rogaine for men?
Nothing.
I think it would look good on you. I think it would look like him. Speed, what do you think? You think he needs Rogaine for men?
I couldn't tell you anything about that.
How about if we cut some of your hair off your head with your greasy hair?
That'd look weird. That would look weird.
On top of his head?
Yeah, that would look weird.
Why would it
that would look
weird?
like a half toupee or something like that.
It would look good on you. I think it would. Tyler needs some more hair on that head. You know? More or less. You see, you help him out.
No, I know. I just think that would look weird if you just replace some random strands of my hair and just fill the bald spot.
Did you see what Snug wrote over here?
If there is a bet, maybe the loser has to pet winner's hair, shaved eyebrows.
The loser has to pet winner's hair, shaved eyebrows. Well, whatever that means. Yeah.
Yes, you pet the. I don't know. Anyway,
Anyways,
it's been fun.
It has been. Anyways, who do we have tomorrow?
So tomorrow we have the ESPN, the Katie, the ESPN.
Oh, she's coming on?
She's coming on tomorrow at 10 p.m. Katie Hennessy is her last name. And then at 11
She is
ESPN talent director. And then at 11 p.m., returning to the show, he was on in the summer of 2020. He works for PackToTheFuture.com, Ralph Mancini. He will be returning to the show. He was the one you had that argument with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers with way back. This was 2020.
He also thinks Favre is better?
He did, I believe. No, I think he thought Rodgers was better. I think Errol argued for Favre at that time, if I remember correctly. But he also did a lot of NFL draft stuff. He also does a lot of NFL draft stuff too.
Great. So I like Mancini. He was really, really good, actually.
So he'll be
We had a
coming
lot
back
of
on
fun.
tomorrow.
Very funny guy too.
Yeah.
Very, very funny. So we got Mr. Mancini coming back. Mancini, where's a beanie? Something that Tyler, aka Mothball / Duff Harrison needs, right? Right, Tyler, you good over there? No, not yet. But anyways, great show. I'd like to thank ex-NFL player, obviously Packers, Panthers, and Seahawks guard Mike Wall for joining us. He was fantastic. Great interview, really great personality. Really gave us an insight of Brett Favre when he played with Brett Favre in his career and his career in the background of playing offensive line now and in the past. So shout out to Mike Wall for joining us. Like Speedy says, we have Katie, a talent director from ESPN joining us tomorrow, Mr. Mancini, good NFL guy, very smart guy and a big smart ass. So you'll really like him. There'll be a lot of banter back and forth with me and him, I'm sure, tomorrow. I guess that's it. Thank you to all the fans that listen to us every single day. Keep downloading our app. Go to our iOS. It's free. WWSRN or Android Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Again, thank you to the fans. We will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Until then, this is Errol Mark, Speedy Petey, and Mr. Duff himself, Harrison. Tyler? You over there? You all right over there with that beat?
I'm freezing. I want to go home.
Freezing? What are you, like a little girl?
By the way, thank you, Keith. He's a good show, gentleman.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. What's wrong with you?
I'm cold.
Cold? What are you, sick?
No. I've been coughing this whole show as a rouse.
Are you aroused? Are you arousing yourself?
No.
All right. We will be back tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.